for local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 101.1 everywhere.
It's Monday, July 24th. Good morning. I'm Perushka Gopal-Kista. Right now, mainly sunny in Ottawa, 23 degrees, feeling more like 29. Here's what's making news right now. Now, some breaking news from OC Transpo. They just provided an update, and they have said that full service on the light rail won't be expected at least until July 31st. That's next Monday. OC Transpo providing a memo just before their update that's supposed to take place right now. They're saying that an ongoing investigation is currently ongoing and 44 light rail vehicles have been inspected so far and no other problems have been found. Now, we will be carrying that update live for you as it happens. But in the meantime, here's City News reporter Chris Curries, who tells us when the trains came to a complete standstill.
The Confederation line has been shut down for a full week due to an axle and bearing issue. And while it's now the second longest shutdown of the beleaguered system's history, it seems like it will be up and running at some point soon. Commuters have been promised a fulsome update by noon today, with work on a return to service plan from OC Transpo and RTG. This after train inspections are ongoing. At last word mid-afternoon yesterday, 35 of 45 trains had been inspected with no issues identified. Replacement buses are continuing with OC Transpo's staff on site at a number of locations to help with some tweaks on R1. Chris Curry, City News.
Now, taking a look at your weather for today, here's our meteorologist, Jesse Uppel.
We'll be unsettled at times, but still hang on to a mix of sun and cloud. The risk of isolated showers and thunderstorms is possible. 29 degrees will feel like 35. Later tonight, partly cloudy. Lingering showers are possible. We'll drop down to 17 degrees. And by Tuesday, a mix of sun and cloud. We're dry, 27 degrees with a humidex near 32. Today's guaranteed high, 29.
23 degrees right now in Ottawa, 24 in Smiths Falls. Nova Scotia remaining under a province-wide state of emergency after historic weekend rainfall that washed out many roads and destroyed several bridges. Our Jamie Pulfer joins us now with the latest on that situation.
It's the latest example of extreme weather on the East Coast with a flood emergency in Nova Scotia. The search continues for 4 people, including 2 children, swept away after 2 vehicles were hit by the flash flooding. RCMPs say the search is focused around West Hants. It's a rural spot northwest of Halifax, and that's where a dive recovery team has located a pickup truck. It was submerged in more than 2 meters of water in a field, believed to be the truck the children were riding in. Premier Tim Houston.
To the families, you have an entire province praying for your loved one's safe return.
As much as 250 millimeters of rain fell in the flood zone. The water is now receding, revealing the extent of all the damage, including so many transportation challenges. More than 50 roads washed out, 19 bridges damaged, and 6 destroyed. Jamie Pulfer, City News.
And I'm Perushka Gopal-Kista. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Connecting you and your community. This is the Sam Laprade Show on City News
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Good morning, Ottawa. Good morning. Welcome to the Sam Laprade Show. Sam off for another week. Derek Fage here, host of Daytime Ottawa on Rogers TV, filling in for Sam. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for joining us. As you know, OC Transpo expected to give us a little bit more information this morning about a return to service plan for Ottawa's light rail transit system. There's a number of people speaking on that today, including the mayor and, of course, the general manager, Renee Almacar, will be speaking about it. And we'll take that live right now just to hear what they are saying about a return to service plan. Here we go.
The system that you expect, the system that all of us paid for.
This is Mayor
When I ran for mayor last year, one of my greatest concerns was the state of our light rail system. As a radio host and columnist, I raised a lot of questions about the decisions around light rail before, during, and after it was built. And as a resident, I was incredibly frustrated with what I saw was happening. I ran because I wanted to make public transit safer and more reliable for the people of Ottawa. Je me suis présenté parce que je voulais rendre les transports en commun plus sûrs et plus fiables pour les résidents
I
d'Ottawa.
stood for election because I wanted a light rail to be safer and more reliable.
And I supported all of the recommendations. For the past week, along with doing many interviews with the media, I've been meeting regularly with city and transit leadership and speaking with city councillors. A number of important steps have been taken or are about to be taken that we will share with you today. After a lot of analysis and investigation, we are now moving forward based on several important principles. First, there is nothing more important than the safety of our passengers and our residents. That's why whenever there's an issue with the system, we must act with an abundance of caution. And we won't start running the trains again until we are sure that they are safe. Second, we must be transparent and share as much information as possible. Throughout the past week, there have been a number of updates and briefings shared with councillors and the public, much more communication than there was in the past. Also, I and others here today have done a number of media interviews to answer questions and share what we know during a rapidly unfolding and rapidly changing situation. In addition, starting tomorrow, OC Transpo will hold daily media briefings so that we're keeping the public informed and to answer as many of your questions as possible. À partir de demain, nous tiendrons des points de presse quotidiens.
Starting tomorrow, we will be having
We're
daily
just listening in here on
the public informed and to
what is happening over at OC Transpo. You were just hearing from Mayor Mark Sutcliffe there. There are others that plan to speak during this press conference as well. We're carrying that live right here on the Sam Laprade Show.
We are continuing to implement the recommendations in last year's public.
Work collaboratively and effectively with our partners in the light rail system. I'm very encouraged to see the level of cooperation that has been happening during the past week, and that has led to a couple of important announcements we will be making today. Fourth, whenever there is an issue, we must work as quickly as possible to fix it and to restore service as quickly as possible, as long as we are able to do so safely. Renee will have more to say about our plans to resume service, possibly as early as next Monday, in a few minutes. Finally, and most importantly,
as early as
it's
next
not good
Monday.
enough
My goodness.
to simply repair the problems and hope that they don't occur again. We must find the permanent solutions so these issues and interruptions stop happening and we have a consistently safe and reliable service. Nous devons trouver des solutions permanentes pour que ces événements cessent.
We must find permanent solutions so these events stop happening and we have the safe, reliable service we paid for.
That OC Transpo, the consortium, and Alstom, the company that designed the trains, have agreed to move forward with a complete redesign of the axle system that has been at the center of many of the issues we've experienced. That alone will not solve all of our issues, but I and the team at OC Transpo are hopeful that this redesign will be a giant step forward. At last, we are working on the root problem and not just the issues that arise from it. I want to thank Renee and the team at OC Transpo, all of the people who work for our public transit system. Merci à Renee et à l'équipe d'OC Transpo.
You are listening to Mayor Mark Sutcliffe here speaking
to everyone
at the press conference that was assembled to talk about the return to service for our LRT. We're waiting to hear from Renee Almacar as well on this. She will have, as Mayor Sutcliffe said, more news on what the investigation looks like. We'll go back here live.
I don't expect residents to have confidence in the system just because service is restored in the next few days. A lasting trust and confidence will come only when the chronic and persistent issues we've experienced have been permanently addressed. I'm hopeful and encouraged by the fact that we are finally starting to address those issues, those fundamental issues that have been plaguing our system. These are the critical actions that we need to take in order to finally have a safe and reliable transit system. There is still a lot of work ahead of us. This is not going to happen overnight, but I'm hopeful that this is the beginning of a new period during which the recommendations of the inquiry are being closely followed. There's a high level of collaboration between OC Transpo and the consortium. There's a high level of communication with the public, and we are working toward not just temporary fixes, but permanent solutions that will deliver the light rail service Ottawa residents expect and deserve. I'll now turn things over to Wendy Stephenson.
Merci, Monsieur Ramer, and good morning, everyone. I'd like to begin by saying that my thoughts and my condolences are also with the young woman and her loved ones, the bus operator, and all of the affected passengers with respect to what happened last week. Today, I want to convey to OC Transpo customers and to the people of Ottawa that I understand what a significant impact these ongoing service disruptions have had on your lives. This is not merely a minor inconvenience. It's frustrating. It's disruptive for those who rely on our transit system for daily necessities. And I know that I speak for everyone when I say that this is not the service that the taxpayers of Ottawa have paid for or deserve. I have directed Renee and her team to work with RTG and Alstom to expedite the determination of the root cause of this recurring problem with the bearings and identify a solution to fix it permanently as soon as possible. And working with our partners, we must do what it takes to prevent this issue from reoccurring and disrupting this critical service that transit riders rely on every day. And I can assure you that Renee and her team at OC Transpo have been working around the clock with our partners to determine the root cause of this problem and resolve it once and for all. The collaboration between the city, RTG, and Alstom has improved significantly, and there is a collective appreciation for the urgency in addressing and resolving this current situation and preventing future service disruption. Challenges in this relationship were raised as a primary concern in the recent public inquiry, and I have seen firsthand the changes that have taken place in this regard. And I want to acknowledge my appreciation for those at the city and our partners for this necessary improvement. As a result of the collaboration, we now have a plan to move forward. And we also have a commitment from our partners to resolve this specific issue once and for all. Renee and Richard are going to provide more information on this momentarily. And while we have to understand the root cause and resolve this issue for the long term, we must also focus on today and minimizing the negative impacts this disruption is having on people's lives. And since the launch of our One service, OC Transpo has been listening to its riders. They have been hearing the frustrations and the suggestions for where there is room for improvement. And OC Transpo has tried to be agile, and they've made changes based on daily feedback and ideas from our riders. And from moving routes to making signage clearer, they have adjusted and communicated these changes and improvements to the public. And to our transit riders, I can assure you that you are being heard. I'd like to take a moment, and I'd like to thank Renee and her team for their active communication.
A lot of thank yous. A lot of thank yous to the team, from the mayor, and now you're listening to Wendy Stephenson. She is the interim city manager speaking at the moment. We're still waiting on Renee Almakar, the general manager, to come on. But this is Wendy Stephenson, interim city manager.
We will have daily media availabilities now, so that there is more information available on the situation with respect to the investigation and roadmap forward. We are committed to sharing any new information that we have with the public. I'm now going to hand it over to Renee, our General Manager of Transit Services Department. Renee.
Merci beaucoup, Wendy. Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I would like to begin by addressing our customers. This month, it has been 21 months since I came to the city of Ottawa and started working to serve you. Before accepting the position here, I had done my homework. I knew all about the issues Ottawa had with its light rail system, and I knew the work that OC Transpo had ahead of it. These challenges are why I came here. I expected that relationship will need to be rebuilt and technical challenges would need to be solved. I came here to fix Ottawa's light rail system. Dès mes premiers jours ici avec vous à Ottawa, je vous ai dit qu'un problème technique.
From my very first days here, I said that it would take a technical solution to solve a technical problem.
I spend my time apologizing again for the service interruption, but that would just be more words. I think the residents of Ottawa have heard enough words. They are looking for action and for results. The best apology we can make to you is by fixing the system permanently and provide a consistent and reliable rail service. A service that our city can be proud of and that will bring Ottawa up to the standard of other major cities in the world. That is what my team and I have been working to achieve. It has been 8 days since we made the decision to stop rail service. It was a decision based on my technical expertise as an engineer, based on the advice of my directors, my chief safety officer, and engineers, as well as the experts at RTG and Alstom. It was a decision that we made together as a team based on solid evidence. The way the decision was made speaks to the improved relationship we have built with our partners. Over the past 8 days, we have been very busy. In a moment, Richard Holder will review the details of the test we have performed and the analysis that is taking place. Before to do so, I would like to speak to you about the return to the service plan. We are anticipating restarting gradual safe resumption of rail service 1 week from today on Monday, July 21st. In order for me to make the decision to relaunch service, I need 3 things. First, I need an inspection of all the axle bearings in our fleet. This is complete. We know that 6 will need further investigations as an abundance of caution. I would like to clarify what that means. 44 LRVs have been inspected. That means 880 hubs assembly have been inspected, which means 1,760 bearings. Second, I need the results of an analysis of the hub assembly from the manufacturer Texalis. This is expected on July 28th. Third, I need a revised safety note from Alstom and RTG. That note is in progress, and I expect to receive it by the end of this week. The drafting of the safety note is being done in cooperation between OC Transpo, Alstom, and RTG, another sign of the strong relationship we have built together. Once these 3 things are in place, gradual rail service can resume. We will provide more details on the return to service in future briefings as we get closer. In parallel, we are working to review the analysis of all the tests conducted on the line. Based on this new information, we have a firm commitment from Alstom and RTG to redesign the axles to permanently fix this issue. The redesign and retrofits to the fleet will take time, and we will have more details to share with you in the coming weeks. This is a tremendous and important step in the right direction and will allow us to fulfill our promise to you of a safe, reliable, world-class rail system. A system that our city can truly be proud of.
You're listening to Renee Amilcar. She is the General Manager of Transit Services at OC Transpo. Derek Fage here, filling in on the Sam Laprade Show. We're bringing this LRT update to you live here on City News.
The Director of Transit Engineering to review the results of the test we have conducted so far. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Renee. Good morning, everyone. Today, I want to provide some details of the work that has been performed and the analysis that is taking place. As Renee mentioned, the difficult decision to pause Line 1 service was made to ensure the safety of our customers and staff. Once that decision was made, the next priority was to understand the factors that led to this latest issue. We have been working together with RTG and Alstom to implement a testing program to gather data to determine a root cause. The information will also help to develop a new containment plan and inform a long-term sustainable solution. The ongoing investigation is comprehensive and can be divided into two key areas. Could we pull up the slides, please?
This is Richard Holder speaking right now.
The first key area of work involves the inspection program. Inspecting the track and trains was important to determine if this issue is related to a break or failure or poor condition of any part of the system. As you can see on the screen, in this area of work, there have been 5 elements of focus. For the pry-bar tests, as Renee has mentioned, all 44 light rail vehicles, also known as LRVs, that are in service have been inspected, and 6 LRVs need to have further investigation. 1 LRV is currently undergoing unrelated work in Kingston and will be inspected at a later date. The visual track inspections. RTG has conducted a walkthrough of the entire line on both tracks, inspecting all the track infrastructure. No issues have been identified. Rail geometry. Accurate measurements of the rail using a digital Geismar piece of equipment have been conducted during the heat of the afternoon and during the cool of the night. These tests will confirm if the track is within maintenance tolerances. Currently, the data is being analyzed to identify any inconsistent results. The restraining rail. This rail is a passive safety device and only becomes active when there is a risk of derailment. RTG has been adjusting the restraining rail to the optimal position. This work is expected to conclude by July the 30th. And finally, the axle hub assembly. The assembly that was out of tolerance has been shipped to France. The manufacturer will carefully dismantle the hub and inspect the components for any abnormal wear. We expect the results of the analysis to be completed by July the 28th. The grease from the hub has also been sent to a laboratory for further analysis. Next slide, please.
This is Richard Holder, by the way, Manager of Systems and Operations Integration at the City of Ottawa, speaking right now.
Accelerometers and strain gauges are attached to the axles of one train to gather key data. For this area of work, there have been 3 elements. The first involved conducting multiple loading tests during the hottest parts of the day with varying loads inside the light rail vehicle at varying speeds and with the restraining rails set at different offsets. A detailed analysis of the data gathered is being conducted, but preliminary indications are that the range of loads tested would not have caused an instantaneous failure, but repetitive loading cycles may have contributed to degraded reliability. Second are the vibration sensors, known as smart bugs. They have been used on a vehicle that was coupled to the instrumented bogey test train to gather further data. Results are being analyzed now. And lastly, work is underway to determine the vibration signature of a degraded hub assembly. The instrumented bogey test train will be fitted with a hub assembly that is outside the maintenance tolerance of the current containment plan. The test train will travel the alignment at various speeds and gather valuable data to help determine the vibration signature of a degraded axle assembly.
Okay, I think we'll leave it there. We're getting into some more technical issues, but as you can see, further testing being done. It appears that there are 6 trains that need further investigation. So they've looked into each and every one of them. Most of them have passed their tests outside of those 6 trains that were mentioned. If you're just joining us now, that is the LRT update press conference. Mayor Sutcliffe kicked things off, of course, apologizing to residents here in the city of Ottawa that rely on transit. We also heard from Renee Almacar, the city's the general manager of OC Transpo, basically. She had said that we will not see service until next Monday, July the 31st. So another week, but they do expect to be up and running in 1 week's time. Again, that's Monday, July 31st. If new information comes throughout this press conference, of course, we'll bring it to you here on City News. This is Derek Fage filling in on the Sam Laprade Show. You're watching on Rogers TV and listening on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Every year, dozens of Canadians are killed or seriously injured because they take risks around railway tracks. Talk to your loved ones about rail safety. Visit stoptracktragedies.ca.
Hello, I'm Jim Dietz, host of Canada Files. I hope you'll join me each week for interesting and informative discussions with some of Canada's most impressive people.
If you're facing Alzheimer's disease or dementia, you don't have to do it alone. There are people and resources that can help, and we'll connect you to them. Alzheimer's Society of Ontario. Our connections matter.
Long way from Nashville and Mama, I'll tell you that. Performed from Montreal to Boston to Los Angeles. But Toronto, that's my chosen home. Sure, when I'm walking down Yonge Street, I see some funny people who have the nerve to point the finger at me. And grin and smile and whisper. My song was #2 on local radio. Sold 10,000 in Toronto alone. Turned down Ed Sullivan because they asked me to remove my makeup. Wouldn't do American Bandstand because of their segregation policies. I was just being me. Never tried to explain myself to anyone. And besides, none of that to worry, Jackie, because I know I look good. Got a new way of loving, baby. Thought I want to teach it to you.
Jackie Shane was a pioneer transgender soul singer, a central figure in the Toronto R&B scene. She helped shape what we know as the Toronto sound.
Do you worry about how much someone drinks?
Do you feel angry or depressed most of the time? Do you feel neglected or unloved?
Do you feel that if the drinker loved you, she or he would stop drinking?
If you answered yes to any of these questions, you are not alone.
Not everyone trapped by alcohol is an alcoholic.
Families and friends are suffering too. Al-Anon and Alateen can help. Call 1-866-200-0223 or visit alanon.org/help.
Rogers TV presents a series of original creative stories animated by storytellers for children of all ages. Join us for Ottawa Storytellers.
It's a new season of The New Fly Fisher on Rogers TV.
It was our 35th anniversary. To celebrate, we were on our
24th. Good morning. I'm Perushka Gopal-Kesta. Right now in Ottawa, mainly sunny, 24 degrees, 24 in Smith Falls. Here's what's making news right now. Breaking news from OC Transpo, no service on the Confederation line at least until next week. That's the latest from OC Transpo. The O train has been shut down since last week because of an axle bearing issue. OC Transpo saying that service could safely resume by Monday, July 31st. So far, 44 light rail vehicles have been checked. 6 are being investigated further. The mayor saying that they will also be a design modification of the axle hub assembly. This as part of the root cause problem that has been causing the problems on the O train. Now, further testing will continue this week. Transit officials expected to provide an update at 4 p.m. again today, and those will continue throughout the week every day. But stay with City News for the latest on that developing story. City News Time, it's 10:33. I'm Perushka Gopal-Kesta. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Welcome back. Welcome back to the Sam Laprade Show. Sam off again this week. She will be back on Monday of next week. She's missing out on all the action. My goodness, Sam goes away, the LRT goes down. Oh boy. It's been a difficult ride, or no ride for some of us here that rely on our light rail system. So my understanding, that press conference continues live right now. If anything else, anything new comes out of that as we go on here, we will certainly bring that to you here on City News. We're going to switch topics now and talk hogweeds. You've probably seen these, and you may not realize how incredibly dangerous they are. Here to talk more about it, we're joined by National Media Relations Director of Nature Conservancy of Canada, Andrew Holland. Good morning, Andrew.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing great, thanks. How about yourself?
Not too bad, although I'd be happier if I was where Sam is. It looks like she's on vacation in a nice, warm, sunny, beachy spot.
Oh, yeah, she sure is. I mean, we've had pretty darn good weather here in Ottawa, certainly some storms, and, of course, the tragic tornado that blew through here, but it's been some nice hot weather for beaches here in and around Ottawa as well. And probably a good growing season, I imagine, for the giant hogweed. Let's talk about this first of all. I know many of our listeners have heard about this. So where exactly did it come from, and when did it come to Canada, Andrew?
Well, you mentioned the hot weather, and you're right. It flowers between June and August, so it's something that people are spotting increasingly. But it's an ornamental plant that basically came here from Europe, brought to Canada from Asia and Eastern Europe in the 1940s as a decorative horticultural plant. So it's an invasive species. It's found in different provinces in Canada, happens all around the world. But it's not really the plant that's dangerous, it's the sap that can come out of it, because what makes it one of Canada's most notorious and dangerous plants is that it produces a large amount of sap, and inside that sap, Derek, there's a chemical that reacts with sunlight. So if you get the sap on your skin and you're exposed to that sunlight, you can get some severe blisters, even second degree and third degree burns.
Wow. So how exactly does this plant spread? You mentioned that it's invasive. How does it spread?
Well, it generates a lot of seeds.
Okay.
Each giant hogweed plant produces between 50,000 to 150,000 seeds. It only seeds every 2 to 3 years, but once one of these plants flowers and seeds, the thing dies, but these seeds are actually viable in the soil for up to 15 years. And when you get winds, these seeds can disperse. Birds can pick up these seeds as well and travel them around. But also when you get heavy rains and any kind of flooding conditions, these seeds get transported downstream and elsewhere, and so they germinate, and the cycle continues. It just perpetuates. But the other thing that happens is people, unknowingly or unintentionally, they put it in their gardens because they think it's such a beautiful, enormous plant that they would like in their own backyard. So they collect the seeds and then put it in their yards, but they don't realize that it's an invasive.
Andrew, what does the plant look like?
Well, basically, one of the ways to identify it is just it's tall. It grows, 6 feet in height, and you can find it along streams, trails, roadsides, ditches, open fields, and woodlands. That's how you can identify in terms of where it grows.
Okay.
But it has large clusters of white flowers at the top. So it's a big green plant with large clusters of white flowers at the top, and it has prickly purple stems. So that's kind of how you identify it and where you see it. It's along roadsides, along ditches, along trails. Where I live, you find a whole pile of this stuff along a trail system about 3 kilometers from my house, because you can't miss it. It's so tall. It's so high.
Yeah, I'm just looking at images online right now, and it's got a fairly thick stem as well. It looks
That's
like,
right.
eh? Yeah.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's not something to be toyed with, and you can try to remove it yourself, but basically if you do that, you got to make sure that you're taking the right precautions, like wear protective clothing, like long pants, long sleeves, gloves, goggles, that type of thing.
Right.
But you should also contact your municipality along with provincial invasive plant species councils, so that way they like to see where this thing is infesting areas, so they can control the spread. And it's always a good idea to have it professionally removed.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, it's hard to believe, just looking at the plant. I mean, it is quite lovely looking, so I can see the attraction. But for people that don't realize, I mean, how incredibly So what if you do get exposed to its sap? What measures can be taken to kind of protect ourselves to make sure we get it off ourselves as quickly as possible?
Sure, and this could be little kids playing hide and go seek. Like, this is how innocent this can happen. You just brush up against it. You don't have to be removing it. You're just outdoors and gardening and hiking and just sort of come in contact with it. Same with your pets. Like your dogs are going out and about, and then they directly contaminate people who touch them. So that's how innocent this can happen. But if any of the sap gets on your skin, so avoid the sunlight. Get in from the sun, because that's how it really agitates it even more. It's that sap gets on your skin and your skin's exposed to that sunlight. The reaction can be a lot worse in that hot, sunny condition. So remove the sap with a paper towel without rubbing it. So avoid spreading the sap on your skin. So use a paper towel, then, clean it thoroughly once you're done that with soap and water to reduce the severity of a reaction. And you can see reactions and blistering for up to 48 hours after you come into contact with the sap. And certainly if you get it in your eyes, try to use clear water for at least 10 minutes to rinse your eyes, but contact a doctor and wear sunglasses and dark lenses to avoid exposing your eyes to the light. I don't want people to be freaked out about this.
Right.
But in fairness, this plant has been around the Ottawa Valley and Derek, and doing my research for this interview, since 2010. There's been incidents of this giant hogweed popping up in parts of the Ottawa Valley in different spots, whether it's in Lanark, Ottawa South, the West Side, Renfrew County, Pembroke, Mississippi Mills, between Perth and Smith Falls. There's been a smattering of incidents where this thing has been found.
Andrew, just since I have you on the line, I think it's a great opportunity, too, to talk a little bit about Nature Conservancy of Canada and sort of, your mission and the impact that you have. Tell us a little bit about yourselves as well.
Sure. Well, the Nature Conservancy of Canada, we've existed since 1962. We call ourselves nature's real estate agents. We buy land, or people generously donate land for conservation. We work with willing private landowners who want to sell or donate their lands for conservation. But we also work with municipalities and other large landowners to try to conserve their lands. But we also try to help people learn about nature in their own backyards. And this upcoming long weekend, from the 3rd to the 7th, we have the 4th annual Big Backyard Bio Blitz. And this is a way for people to get involved in the outdoors by using their phones and snapping things like giant hogweed or plants. It's a national bio blitz that we're running, and people just have to register. And it's a way for people to learn about nature in their own backyard, their own neighborhood, their own community, their favorite trail system, or if they're just walking their dog in the subdivision or walking their kids to the wading pool, or they're going out during camping or doing anything over the long weekend, they can just snap pictures and upload them. So that way they can help scientists track not only our good species like butterflies and birds and this type of thing, but maybe identify these invasive plants where we don't know where they are. That's one of the best ways of containing them, is through information by snapping photos and helping scientists see these and learn more about their locations.
I love that idea. So is it, do you have sort of a hashtag or anything that people are following on social media at all, or?
Yeah, just NCC BioBlitz. And
okay.
It's happening August 3rd to the 7th over that 5-day period. People just register on the Nature Conservancy of Canada's website. It's just called the Big Backyard Bio Blitz, and we had over 90,000 people send in pictures of things last year, which is
excellent.
Great. So there's a lot of different trees, plants, bugs, things. Some things people didn't know what they were, but that's the beauty of uploading them, is people can help identify them for you. So if you don't know what this plant or bird is, it's okay. You don't have to be a scientist or a biologist to participate. It's for newbies, everybody, families, anyone can participate, and it's something to do over the upcoming long weekend, regardless of where you're at.
Yeah.
The idea is to help, if people can connect more with nature and learn more about it, they'll feel more strongly about the need to protect it and conserve it.
Agreed, 100%. Great initiative, Andrew. Andrew, just very quickly, I just have a couple of seconds left here. Where can people, do you have information on the giant hogweed on your website?
We sure do.
Okay.
Under an invasive species page. So if people want to just go to natureconservancy.ca and go to our invasive species page, they can learn more about it, see photos to help identify what it looks like.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your time today, Andrew. Really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for your time. I appreciate the invitation.
Oh, it's our pleasure. That is Andrew Holland, National Media Relations Director with Nature Conservancy of Canada. You can find them online at natureconservancy.ca. And don't forget that BioBlitz happening beginning just around that the upcoming long weekend. Sounds like an excellent initiative. We'll be back with more. It's Derek Fage here, filling in on the Sam Laprade Show, and you're watching on Rogers TV and listening on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Every year, dozens of Canadians are killed or seriously injured because they take risks around railway tracks. Talk to your loved ones about rail safety. Visit stoptracktragedies.ca.
Hello, I'm Jim Deeks, host of Canada Files. I hope you'll join me each week for interesting and informative discussions with some of Canada's most impressive people.
I'm Derek Fage, and I encourage you to join me each and every weekday at 2 p.m. for an edition of Daytime Ottawa. We will share with you some fabulous stories, inspirational stories, and of course, recipes from local chefs. We'll tell you about some wonderful musical performances, introduce you to local businesses and charities, and so much more. Join us here on Daytime Ottawa at 2 p.m. weekdays with repeats at 6 and 11 p.m.
I'm Julian Armour from Music and Beyond. Join us for a new show this spring on Rogers called Music and Beyond Presents.
I'm Wendell Clark with a word about winning. We all know it takes a team effort in any sport and with any challenge. You can be a part of the winning team that shuts out impaired driving. Whether you're out on the town or just hanging out with friends, drink responsibly. Always have a plan for a safe ride home for yourself, your family, and your friends. You'll be helping to shut out impaired driving.
Visit ArriveAlive.org to find out more. Arrive Alive. Drive sober.
Rogers TV presents a series of original creative stories animated by storytellers for children of all ages. Join us for Ottawa Storytellers.
It's a new season of the new Fly Fisher on Rogers TV.
On City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Welcome back. Welcome back to the Sam Laprade Show. Sam is off again this week. She will be back next week. We turn our attention to a different topic, incredibly important, and that is global hunger. and the upcoming UN Food Systems Summit in Rome. Here to tell us more about that, we are joined by Jeffrey Johnston, international affairs columnist with the Kingston Whig Standard. Good morning, Jeffrey.
Happy Monday, Derek.
And happy Monday to you. An important topic. Again, you've done a thorough investigation and another excellent article. Let's talk what we're seeing. Certainly global hunger. We talked about it a bit last week. I know that David Smith talked about it as well. The fact that, the Ukraine and the Russian situation, right? That has ended, where they could get grain out of the Ukraine, and I imagine that's probably leading a lot to some of this discussion we're having today, Jeffrey.
Yes, so you're referring to the Black Sea Grain Initiative that allowed Ukrainian vessels to transit the Black Sea and go on to destinations such as the Middle East and in particular Africa. Ukraine is a major supplier of grains to the developing world, and so Russia has pulled out of that agreement and will no longer guarantee the safety of Ukrainian tankers. This will mean basically famine-like conditions for some countries in the longer term. Overall, the Ukraine war has caused food shortages, price spikes, and also spikes in energy prices, which makes it more expensive to produce food and therefore is passed on to the consumers, and that's devastating for low and middle income countries. So yes, right now, today, Tuesday and Wednesday, there is this summit in Rome, Italy. It's the UN Food Systems Summit, and it's all about, they're going to examine global food security, hunger, poverty, and the plight of people living in rural areas. I recently interviewed the president of the United Nations International Fund for Agricultural Development, and the gentleman's name was Alvaro Lario, and he has got a PhD in finance, and he worked his way up through the World Bank and then went over to the IFAD, and he was telling me that there are 780 million people suffering from hunger in the world today. Also, 2.4 billion people do not have access to nutritious, healthy food year-round. This is devastating, in particular for children. So there are 148 million children who suffer from stunting. So that means that they're smaller in stature. They're not developing the way they should. Their immune systems aren't as good, and they probably are not developing their brains the way they would if they were eating nutritious food. So that means these kids will grow up with permanent cognitive impairments. Also, there are 45 million children in the world today who are suffering from wasting. That means that they're not getting enough calories, so the body starts to cannibalize muscle. So these children end up by looking like skeletons. They have sunken eyes, and they're sick. And that's in the world today, and it's only going to get worse unless the world gets a handle on climate change and adapts food systems to address inequality. So that this summit is going to look at these things. So President Lario said that things that need to be done, for example, would be in the developing world investments in road construction so that they can get food to markets, food distribution networks, cold storage, electrification, water resources, irrigation, and diversifying crops so that they grow not just cash crops, but crops that are more climate resistant, that can exist when there are higher temperatures or there's less rain. So there's a lot to be talked about in Rome, Italy this week.
Yeah, and Jeffrey, something else you bring up in your article and with that conversation with Lario is he brings up something around urbanization, rapid urbanization driving a lot of changes in how food systems work. What does he mean by that? How is urbanization driving change?
Yeah, so the world is rapidly urbanizing. That means people are moving to cities. And this changes not only the way people eat, because traditionally in a lot of these countries, lower income countries, people eat a grain-based diet. So they're switching from grain-based diets as they move to cities to meat, dairy, fruit and vegetables, because their incomes go up when they move into the urban areas. But then it also means that they're eating more processed food and less nutritious food. So there needs to be public education about that, and there also needs to be addressing equity so that people who work in these urban areas can afford, fruits and vegetables and other healthy foods. Also, though, there's an opportunity for smallholder farmers who tend to be often women in these countries to contribute to the agricultural a value-added food chain so that they can actually be fairly compensated for their agricultural produce. To that end, though, it's really important to address a certain inequality. So women farmers in a lot of places aren't even allowed to own land, so that has to change. They actually have to be able to own the land they're farming. It's also important to give women access to finance, because in a lot of countries, women can't get a loan, so they can't invest in their farms. They also need access to digital technologies that will help make their farms more profitable so that they can actually feed the cities and actually increase their income, because when women in these communities generate income, then they can send their children to school, and the overall community tends to benefit because women tend to put the money back into their families and into the communities. So this urbanization trend could be a good thing if we can help these countries shift the way they produce food and the ways in which the farmers are treated. So the United Nations is calling for an additional investments of $400 billion per year between now and 2030 to help make those transitions. It's a big ask, but the UN says that it would be a lot more expensive to just feed people instead of helping them grow the food themselves.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Wish I had more time with you. Always love speaking with you, Jeffrey. Thank you so much for joining us again today.
Thanks, Derek, and it's been great talking to you this last 2 weeks.
Yeah, same here. Always appreciate your time and the effort that Jeffrey puts into each and every one of his articles. I really encourage you to check out his latest article. That's in the Kingston Whig Standard. That again, Jeffrey Johnston, the international affairs columnist with the Kingston Whig Standard. Lots more coming up here on the Sam Laprade Show. This is Derek Fage filling in. You're watching on Rogers TV, listening on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
October 5th, 2014, my daughter was hit by a train. She was walking along the sides of the tracks, and it shattered her world.
Hi, I'm Paula Roy, and it's my pleasure to welcome you back into my kitchen for another season of Paula Roy's Favorite Foods. My approach to food is pretty straightforward. Fancy is fine, but when you're in a time crunch or have a really hungry and patient family to feed, I say simple recipes made with wholesome ingredients that you probably have on hand are the best. And that's exactly what you'll find on Paula Roy's Favorite Foods on Rogers TV.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo, Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
Bum, 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 bum. 20 bucks. 20 bucks. We're on the line for 20 bucks.
One for local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 1011 everywhere.
It's Monday, July 24th. Good morning. I'm Perushka Gopal-Kista. Right now, 24 degrees in Ottawa, 24 in Smiths Falls. Now we're under that severe thunderstorm watch from Environment Canada. Here's what's making news right now. Now, breaking news from OC Transpo. They're saying that no service is expected on the O train at least until next week. The system was shut down since Monday because of an axle bearing issue. The head of OC Transpo, Renee Amilcar, saying that service could resume by Monday, July 31st, once it's safe to do so. The mayor saying a design modification of the axle bearing will also get underway to help prevent similar problems from happening again. A full report of any inspected trains is expected at the end of the week. The head of OC Transpo saying the design modification will also affect Stage 2 of the Confederation line, not the Trillium line. So far, 44 light rail vehicles have been checked and 6 are being further investigated. But stay with City News for the latest on any developing details. Now, with the light rail issues persisting, politicians are sourcing on the idea of Stage 3 of light rail. City News reporter Chris Curry's with some reaction.
The third phase would benefit Barrhaven with a line to Barrhaven Centre and to Canada with proposed stops at the CTC and at Hazeldean. And those residents would likely be affected the most. Canada North Councillor Kathy Curry.
It's a hard one for us because in Canada we really would have rathered at least Stage 2 came to Eagleton. That would serve the tech park when we could try out more autonomous vehicles. I mean, right now we have it coming to at least Moody.
She tells City News it's a tough pill to swallow, but she's not closing the door on it forever and does agree that it's not the time to invest additional taxpayer dollars towards Stage 3. A downtown councillor, though, disagrees, saying problems should not stop the city from building extensions to the line. Chris Curry, City News.
Now, the Prime Minister expected to make some changes around the cabinet table this week, but as City News Parliament Hill reporter Cormac McSweeney tells us, some experts say a simple shuffle is not enough to turn things around for the Liberals.
They want to show that they are listening to criticisms.
Daniel Ballon, director of the McGill Institute for the Study of Canada, says now is the right time for the Prime Minister to shuffle his inner circle, given the Liberals are at the midway point of their mandate and the recent controversies that have dogged the government, like foreign interference in the Paul Bernardo transfer. But Ballon feels while a shuffle may re-energize the party and help the government function better, it's not enough on its own to put the Liberals back on top in the polls.
If there is real change, it will come from the top. So we'll see what happens over the next few months if the Liberals change some of their policies or some of their rhetoric.
He's expecting a large shuffle, but mainly moving people into new portfolios instead of a complete overhaul. While the public safety minister is likely on the move, Ballon feels the ministers of Finance, Foreign Affairs and Innovation will stay put, although you can never count out some surprises. Cormac McSweeney, Parliament Hill.
Now, taking a look at your weather for today, here's our meteorologist, Jesse Uppel.
Will be unsettled at times, but still hang on to a mix of sun and cloud. The risk of isolated showers and thunderstorms is possible. 29 degrees will feel like 35. Later tonight, partly cloudy. Lingering showers are possible. Will drop down to 17 degrees. And by Tuesday, a mix of sun and cloud. We're dry, 27 degrees with a humidex near 32. Today's guaranteed high, 29.
26 right now, partly cloudy. We are under a severe thunderstorm watch right now. And a major change for Twitter's branding is underway.
Twitter is now X, another major change under Elon Musk's ownership.
There is this idea that when you have a brand that you know and you love, and you have terminology that you know and you're used to, it's very, very difficult to change that.
Journalist Chris Stokel-Walker says this is a step towards Musk's idea of a super app that can handle everything from posting messages to making payments.
It is a uniquely Chinese system at the minute, mostly only popular there.
First notable change, the bird logo replaced with the letter X. Brian Clark, ABC News.
And I'm Perushka Gopal-Kista for news anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Welcome back to the Sam Laprade Show. Derek Fage here from Rogers TV filling in for Sam. I imagine my next guest was just as interested as the rest of us here at City News in that press conference earlier today. Mayor Sutcliffe spoke, Emil Amilcar spoke, Richard Holder spoke. I'm sure there were perhaps more in that lineup as well. I think I'm missing one. Oh, Wendy Stephenson spoke as well. So a lot of thank yous, a lot of patting on the back for, the investigation so far and what's going on with our LRT. And as I said, my next guest was probably carefully watching that press conference. I'm joined by Tone Dreesen. He is the former president of the Ontario Architects Association and current president of Architect DCA. Good morning, Tone.
Good morning, Derek.
What did you make of the press conference?
Unfortunately, I was tied up in a meeting, so I didn't catch it. But I can certainly get a sense of what involved. Congratulations for work done to date, but that doesn't move us forward.
Yeah, it looks like we won't get. Well, not looks like it. We definitely won't have LRT this week. Their plan is to get it back up and running next Monday. That's July the 31st. But the LRT has been a constant frustration with all of us as residents here, Tone, and I know you've got that, you feel the same way. You're quoted in a latest CBC article on the fact that you're not too comfortable with, Pimisi being the station that everyone would be getting on and off of, right? If we do get an arena down there at Le Breton Flats, and that you're talking about, obviously the Ottawa Senators, but concerts as well. What is your concern with that particular station?
I think my concern stems from questioning why it was closed for the majority of users for Canada Day. Was that an overreaction on the part of, Canadian Heritage, that there would be a perceived security threat? And if so, what does that do for other events that might be staged at Le Breton Flats, whether they're run through Canadian Heritage or through, arenas or concerts or what have you? Is there a real or perceived security concern that suggests that Pimisi Station isn't the right station for events? And given where it is and given what we've invested to date, what needs to be done to make it the functional, reliable, dependable transit that we need for a growing city, for a nation's capital, for that kind of event. And if the arena is located someplace else, whether that's at Bayview Yards or Herdman or any of the other locations, those stations are no different. So what needs to be done to provide us with the reliable transit system that our city needs?
I guess the argument that I've heard about, the difference between Canada Day and, Blues Fest, and then I guess what we would see at an arena, you would see maybe, 16,000 people. It sounds like they're going to have a bit of a smaller arena if it goes down there. But let's assume even if it's 18,000, Blues Fest seemed to be fine. I guess it was, they were worried that there was going to be over 50,000 at Canada Day, so that's sort of a one-off. But then we have, the light rail system shut down, and they're even doing some testing when it comes to how many people were on it. And then, they're looking at maybe that being the cause, Blues Fest, with having so many people using the system at that time. We don't know what that investigation looks like. But what do you think of that argument, that's sort of Canada Day is a one-off, and we were fine, with Blues Fest seeing 30,000 people attending?
And I guess that's the issue is, and I've said this before, is that part of the challenge is that the LRT we have today is a result of the procurement process we initiated a decade ago. We issued a request for proposal. We set out design parameters and expectations, and we got the system that we have today. It's engineering design, it's engineering failures, such as they are, its station design, its capacity, its frequency, its reliability is a direct result of that initial request for proposal and the design parameters we initiated. We asked for a unicorn of a light rail car in putting together various components and performance expectations, and we got that. And so we are suffering as a city with the result of that procurement process. And if the result of our procurement process is going to be that our system can handle a Blues Fest event of 20,000 people, 30,000 people. It can handle an arena or a concert of, 18, 20,000 people, then great.
Right.
And we're fine. But what happens if our city grows and that demand changes? When I think about something like, let's say a concert goes into a new hockey arena, and a hockey arena seats, say, 18,000 people, and you open up the floor and suddenly you've got 25,000 people.
Right.
So how is our public going to be served if an 18,000 person sold out hockey game is fine, but 25,000 for a concert isn't? Or if it's a 3-day festival and it's 50,000 people a day, how do we manage that kind of crowd, and how do we manage a reliable, dependable transit service if that's the case? Can you imagine what would happen if the LRT was packed full with happy post-Blues Fest having attended people, and it had failed and it had gotten stuck in a tunnel? What would the reaction have been, and how does that affect us reputationally on an international stage, that we've designed a system that can't handle that capacity? And I don't know that those are the solutions or that's the problem.
Right. But, yeah, I know what you're saying. Tone, since I have you on the line, I know you and I have discussed in the past, your disappointment in how the city builds, and I'm talking more about the aesthetics of it, the look and what we do. I wonder what are your thoughts on the stations themselves? Are you impressed with them? Do you think we could have done better? And I don't mean capacity wise. I'm just talking, the design itself.
So it's hard to say because I didn't participate in the design process, and I don't want to be critical of the architect who designed them, because they're a very good architecture firm.
Yeah.
And they responded to the brief that they were given. And that's my issue, is that the procurement, the RFP, set out a brief and an expectation, and we got that. If we didn't, it wouldn't have opened. For me, the challenges, and it's easy to always be the armchair critic, but the challenges are things like, we built a state-of-the-art system without platform edge barriers that you see in other cities and other locations that have doors, have a barrier at the edge of the platform that's interlocked with doors on the train. So when the train pulls up, the doors open and you get on or off, and the rest of the time you don't. And that prevents not only people from falling onto the tracks, but it also prevents those suffering mental health issues from leaping onto the tracks and death by suicide by train. And it also prevents the stations from getting colder, because the platform barriers can be fully enclosed and make the stations warmer. And so there's costs associated with doing that, but there's the social and societal benefit to having that kind of change.
Right.
And that's where I struggle with things, is when, you know, a budget of $2.1 billion becomes a hard cap, and we lose the opportunity to make something slightly better by having a better design. You know, more washrooms. Why every station doesn't have washrooms is a mystery.
Oh, you and me both.
Those issues.
Yeah, agreed, 100%. Tone, wish I had more time. I always enjoy our conversations. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
All right, that is Tone. Thank you. You as well. That's Tone Dreesen. He is the former president of the Ontario Architects Association and current president of Architect DCA. We'll be back with more here on City News. This is Derek Fage filling in on the Sam Laprade Show. And of course, you're watching on Rogers TV and listening on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Every year, dozens of Canadians are killed or seriously injured because they take risks around railway tracks. Talk to your loved ones about rail safety. Visit stoptracktragedies.ca.
Hello, I'm Jim Deeks, host of Canada Files. I hope you'll join me each week for interesting and informative discussions with some of Canada's most impressive people.
Online betting is booming. Booyah! Woo! Oh yeah! You can win big! But you could also lose. There is risk with online gambling, and that's a reality nobody's shouting about. Learn about safer play at knowtherisks.ca.
Giovanni! Fire! The neighbor's farm is on fire. It's almost to the road. It's heading for us.
Help me get the animals out of the barn.
The fire's getting closer.
I'm on the horse.
The house is burning.
Gotta get out to the river. Get up.
Can't leave everything. Careful. Don't fall.
Come on. We have to hurry.
Hurry. There's the river. We're going to make it. I can't swim.
Yes, you can.
Hurry, hurry.
You must get in.
I can't.
Watch out for sparks.
His hair's on fire.
Keep the hair wet.
In May 1870, fires raged along the Saguenay River for more than 150 kilometers, destroying land and lives. One family survived by dousing themselves all night against the searing heat. One family, among the thousands whose resourcefulness and courage shaped the character of this land.
Today, I helped a parent feed their family by connecting them to a food program.
Today, I helped someone connect with mental health supports.
Today, I helped a couple struggling to pay their bills access financial aid.
Every day, 211 navigators connect Canadians to critical government and community programs and services.
211. Help starts here.
Rogers TV presents a series of original creative stories animated by storytellers for children of all ages. Join us for Ottawa Storytellers.
It's a new season of The New Fly Fisher on Rogers TV.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Welcome back to the Sam Laprade Show. Derek Fage here, filling in for Sam. Sam will be back next week. We talked about this on City News. This was an important declaration out of the city of Toronto by Mayor Olivia Chow. Toronto City Council declared gender-based and intimate partner violence an epidemic. They did that, by the way, the same day a man was arrested for allegedly drugging and sexually assaulting an underhoused woman. The declaration was part of a motion from Mayor Olivia Chow that passed with no opposition and calls on the provincial and federal governments to make the same move. Just weeks after Ontario declined to do so, I think, which is a surprise to myself, and I am sure all of our listeners and viewers on Rogers TV. Here to talk more about that, I am joined by Kirsten Mercer. She is a lawyer for End Violence Against Women, Renfrew County. Good morning, Kirsten.
Good morning, Derek. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh no, thank you for joining me. And I watched this with great interest, and certainly saddened that Ontario declined to do so. Kirsten, let's talk about your involvement first of all with End Violence Against Women, Renfrew County, and what your mission is through that organization.
Yeah, so I'm a lawyer in private practice, but I had the privilege of representing EVA Renfrew, which is a coalition of advocates and organizations in Renfrew County that advocate around issues of gender-based violence and intimate partner violence. And I represented them at the inquest last year in Pembroke that was looking into the murders of Carol Culleton, Anastasia Kuzik, and Natalie Warmerdam. Mm-hmm. They were killed in 2015. And so I had the privilege of representing them at that inquest. And as some of your listeners know who've heard me talk about this before, a lot of the heavy lifting from an inquest actually comes after it's over, when we have to push our elected leaders to implement the recommendations that come out of that process.
Can you for those that aren't familiar with that inquest, Kirsten, can you just expand upon that and what the results were?
Yeah, so one of the reasons why that inquest was called was to take a look at intimate partner violence, and particularly intimate partner violence that led to femicide. We know that the perpetrator of that 2015 triple femicide had been in a relationship with at least two of the women and was acquainted with the third. And we believe he was pursuing a relationship with her, although I don't think that one ever happened. Okay. And so, and had a very long, decades-long history of intimate partner violence. And so this inquest was convened in order to look at what were the warning signs, what were the flags, what could we have done to prevent those femicides by this man who knew these women so well, and how do we prevent that from ever happening again? And so that's what the recommendations that the jury in Renfrew County crafted were designed to address.
Okay, and so as you said, the work really happens after that. So what work is ongoing and what work is necessary now, Kirsten?
Well, I don't want to diminish, obviously, the jury's work and all the work of the inquest, but as many of your listeners will know, an inquest doesn't produce a court ruling. It produces recommendations. Right. Those aren't mandatory, right? And so all that work that was done to create these recommendations is meaningless if we don't have, a willing dance partner on the other side in terms of the recipients of those recommendations. And many of them were directed to the Ontario government. Some of those recommendations were directed to the federal government, particularly ones that pertain to the criminal law. And then recommendations were also directed at some other actors, so the Office of the Chief Coroner, for example, and looking at how they handle these kinds of murders or these kinds of deaths and these kinds of investigations, or the Chief Firearms Officer. And one recommendation was directed to the Information and Privacy Commissioner. And so it's not always a government that's on the receiving end. And in fact, municipal governments across the province have really championed this idea of a declaration. And that recommendation wasn't directed to them at all. But it was the small community of Lanark County and the exceptional advocacy of one of the EVA members who lives there, who brought this to City Council in Lanark and said, we need to do this here. The provincial government's not returning our calls. We can't get anyone to do this, but we know what's true in our community, and we want to take this step locally. And that was in December of 2022. And since then, well over 40 other municipalities representing more than half of the people who live in this province have taken that step. So we know that this idea of a declaration of intimate partner violence and gender-based violence as an epidemic has real resonance with people who are closest to the ground, closest to the work, and closest to the community members who are living with this awful violence. And these municipalities want to take a stand. They want to say this is wrong. They want to say we need a a public health approach to dealing with this issue. And then many municipalities have also adopted some of the other recommendations, again, even though they weren't directed to them, because they take this seriously and they want to make things better for people who are living with violence in their communities.
So by calling it an epidemic and a public health emergency, what I'm getting at here is that, you're telling women and those that are living with gender-based violence that you're there, that people are listening, that what's happening to them is not their fault. That's why this is incredibly important, right?
That's right. And, one of the things that was so incredibly moving about the steps that were taken in Toronto and across the province, but last week in Toronto was Mayor Chow, this was her first council meeting, and she really championed this issue and talked about it in personal terms. She talked about her own authentic experience.
That's right, yeah.
As a child who was raised in a family there was violence. And then a number of other councillors stood up and did the same, even amongst city council. It was incredibly moving and impactful. And I hope what it said to people who were listening was, we see you. This isn't your fault. This is our problem, not your problem, and we have to fix it together.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, Mayor Chow had mentioned the statistic that really hit home for me, that in every 48 hours, a woman is killed because of gender-based intimate partner violence in this country. Every 2 days.
Yeah, I believe the statistic is a femicide every 2 days.
That's right.
That may not always be their intimate. No, that's
Correct.
Okay. That may not always be their intimate partner, but
yes.
But yeah, just the pervasiveness of this issue, and given the frequency, how little we really talk about it, and how sort of poor our collective consciousness of this phenomenon is. And I think that's part of why the actions around this epidemic of seeing and naming what's happening in our midst is so important, because, we can't fix what we don't identify and what we can't name. And so calling it what it is, one of the elements of the recommendations that was adopted by Toronto City Council and many other jurisdictions was the idea that femicide be reflected in the criminal code. Another recommendation talks about femicide being incorporated as one of the labels that the coroner's office can use, so that we do a better job of describing what we know is already happening.
Yeah.
Right now, the advocates who keep track of femicides, they're basically culling media reports and publicly available information to create these lists and create this data. It needs to be done in a more systematic way, and it needs to be led by our institutions if we're going to do it seriously. And that takes nothing away from the amazing work of advocates doing the best they can with what they have. But, we need to be doing this on a society-wide level with all of the best data, so that we can really understand how pervasive, how widespread this problem is, and look carefully at what we need to do in order to stop it from happening. Because as OACE, one of the organizations that represents shelters, released earlier this month, every week in Ontario, a woman is killed by femicide. That's every week, another woman. That's just Ontario.
Yeah.
Every week, that's one more woman too many, and we have got to tackle this as a society and identify it as truly a public health emergency. We need all of the tools to be deployed to address this awful, awful situation.
Yeah, agreed. So well said. Kirsten, I really appreciate you joining us today. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Derek, and thanks as always for your attention on this important issue.
Oh, it's our pleasure. And, Sam Laprade, I know she wanted to be here for this particular conversation, but, she's going to continue to champion so many women out there that have lost their lives for no other reason than the fact they are a woman. Again, that's Kirsten Mercer, a lawyer for Renfrew County. That's End Violence Against Women. We'll be back with more. This is Derek Fage, filling in on the Sam Laprade Show. You're watching on Rogers TV, listening on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
October 5th, 2014, my daughter was hit by a train. She was walking along the sides of the tracks, and it shattered her world.
This is a brain in urgent need of mental health care. But because 3 out of every 4 Indigenous people experience racism in healthcare, she may not get the help she needs. Become an ally. Rise above racism in healthcare.
Hi, I'm Meg from Fit Over 50, and I'm here with Fit Finley. I want to invite you to join my upcoming workout, which is focused on upper body and lower body stretches. No equipment is required. All you'll need is a chair. Hope to see you there.
Fit Over 50 with Meg, weekday mornings at 8:30 on Rogers TV.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo, Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
Bum, 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 bum. $20. $20. We're on the line for $20.
For local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 1011. Everywhere.
It's Monday, July 24th. Good morning. I'm Pirushka Gopal-Kista. Right now, 26 degrees in Ottawa. In Smith Falls, it's also 26. We're under that severe thunderstorm watch right now. Here's what's making news right now. Gradual return of the O-Train service expected by next week. That's according to OC Transpo. The system has been shut down since last Monday following an axle bearing issue, and return to service expected by next Monday, July 31st. Mayor Mark Sutcliffe saying there will be a complete redesign of the axle hubs, which Rideau Transit Group saying could take 12 to 18 months.
Transpo, the consortium, and Alstom, the company that designed the trains, have agreed to move forward with a complete redesign of the axle system that has been at the center of many of the issues we've experienced.
Now, Sutcliffe says that this won't solve the issues overnight, but is a step forward to focus on the root problems. So far, 44 light rail vehicles have been tested and 6 are being investigated further. R1 buses are still continuing to run from Blair to Tunney's. Now, the Ottawa Police Services Board meets this afternoon, and among the reports will be the red light cameras. There were almost 100 incidents of police officers that were caught on camera at either red lights or speed enforcement. That's slightly higher than the number last year, when in 12 months, almost 190 complaints were received. The issue continues to produce the most internal complaints in the Ottawa Police Service. Now, the board meets at 4 this afternoon. City News Time, it's 11:33. I'm Pirushka Gopal-Kista. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
Welcome back to the Sam Laprade Show. Sam off again this week. She will be back next week. Derek Fage here, host of Daytime Ottawa on Rogers TV, sitting in for Sam. As a matter of fact, also hosted by-election sit-down with 4 of the candidates running in the by-election for Kanata Carleton. By the way, voting day is July the 27th. You have Jennifer Boudreau from New Blue, Karen McCrimmon, the Liberal candidate, Josh Rackless is running as an independent, Steve Warren, the Green Party, Sean Webster for the PCs, and my next guest is running for the NDP. I'm joined by Melissa Conrad. Good morning, Melissa.
Good morning.
Great to talk with you again today. Before I know, we've got a couple of passion topics to discuss with you, and that of course is healthcare and education. But just you probably heard in our news there, and I'm sure you might have heard it a little bit earlier as well. Light rail, it's our transit system, our light rail system shut down for at least another week. That was announced earlier this morning. They want to do a gradual return to service starting July 31st. Just your thoughts on what's been happening with our LRT system, especially in an area that you'd like to see more public transit, Melissa.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the issues we're having with the LRT here in Ottawa is just a reminder that public-private partnerships don't really work. They haven't worked when we've built hospitals. We've had issues with them in other areas, and yet we still keep going back to these partnerships instead of, building them ourselves. Publicly funded, publicly built. You have more control over the quality of product and the maintenance and all of those kinds of things. And so, we hear a lot of frustration about transit out here in Canada. We're a very underserviced area. It takes a very long time for people to commute downtown or to get to school or to get to work. And so it is a constant frustration. And to be honest, a lot of people out here have chosen to purchase cars while waiting for the system to be built and be functional and be working. And that's not something that a lot of them have wanted to do.
My understanding, Melissa, is that you've knocked on practically every door and you're circling back again. What's the number one issue you're hearing from those residents in Canada Carleton?
We have, yeah. We've knocked on every door in Canada and most of our rural area, and it constantly comes down to healthcare. It constantly comes down to family doctors, people very concerned about school in September for their kids, if there's going to be EAs, how big the classroom sizes are going to be, things like that. People are concerned about their families and, what the future holds for themselves and their kids.
And this is, quite personal for you, right? You work in the healthcare system, is that right?
Yeah, I've been a lab tech for 20 years, and I've worked at all 3 Ottawa hospitals as well as CHEO, and it's frustrating because the public system is fixable. We didn't get enough residencies for every graduating physician last year. I've spoken to some of them who say, they're going elsewhere. Some of them are going out of province to find the residencies because they're not going to sit around and wait. I've spoken to a couple of internationally trained physicians who jumped through our hoops, took courses, wrote the exam, passed the exam, and didn't get a residency in Ottawa, and they have their family settled here and they don't want to relocate. So one of them is working for public health, one of them is working for Health Canada, when they could be working physicians in our system.
Why? Sorry, Melissa, I just want to stop you there very quick. So what is the issue with finding residency then in and around our region?
The province isn't funding enough. They're provincially funded.
Okay.
And, I don't understand why we wouldn't fund, 100 more than we think we need, because if we don't use them, we're saving that money. But if we do use them, then in a year from now, 2 years from now, we will have a lot more family physicians and ER physicians out there.
So I imagine what you're saying to your constituents is that you'll be that voice, right?
That's
to be asking
exactly
those questions.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I want to know why, when we have transfers from the federal government to the provincial government specifically for healthcare, why we know that there's $6 billion unspent during COVID. So let's spend it. Let's put it into healthcare. Let's get it into the places where we need it. Let's not just give it to CEOs of hospitals. Let's put it into residencies. Let's put it into, graduating double classes of nurses, or we know we're short anesthesiologists and respiratory therapists. Let's get that graduation numbers, let's get them higher so that we can get those healthcare workers into the system.
When you and I last spoke on Rogers TV, we talked education as well, because those are the top, healthcare, education, transportation is up there. Protecting green space, I know, is important to residents out in the Kanata Carleton. On the education file, Melissa, what sort of voice do you want to have for those residents in your area?
Well, we have a few, unique situations out here in Kanata Carleton where our house expansion, our development is growing at such a rapid rate that our school system isn't keeping up, and we don't have enough high school specifically for the number of people that are moving into the area. And I've spoken to a couple families that, two of their kids are going to one school now, and one of their kids has to take a 45-minute bus ride to another school because they're overcrowding. So they're trying to shift boundaries around as best as possible. But it's really, causing some strain and stress on families. And so we need to advocate that in the city development out here in Kanata Carleton, with the amount of homes being built, that our municipal infrastructure is keeping up, that we have the funding granted to build the schools that we need that keep up with the homes and the expansion that are happening out here, because it is a problem and it is a concern that's come up multiple times at the door.
Yeah, and that's a fascinating discussion because you have to find a careful balance. Development is, as you said, a lot of housing going up in that area. Development is necessary, new schools, but sometimes doing that takes away from green space, which again, Melissa, I know is important in that area as well, and people have concerns on making sure that that the green space is protected. What is the proper balance to that?
Yeah, I think that people want to know that if green space is going to be developed out here, that it's developed with green space in mind, that it's developed with parks in mind, with walking trails in mind. It's something we do have quite a bit of out here, and that it's developed in a way that community is still convenient, right? We still have grocery stores, and in these developmental plans, we still have schools in these plans, that it's not just urban sprawl where it's homes everywhere. And people really also want to see out here more affordable homes, more starter homes, more condo-style homes, because a lot of what is being built are larger, more luxury-style homes that people can't afford. So it is, like you said, it is a delicate balance out here, and people just want to see that communities are being built with some forethought into keeping as much green space as possible.
I have a couple more minutes for you here, Melissa, and just give you a chance. Perhaps there's a topic that we haven't tackled yet and I haven't brought up that perhaps you're hearing as you're knocking on doors. Is there another topic outside of those four that I named, sort of transportation, healthcare, education, protecting green space, that you're hearing from?
Yeah, we have quite a few families with autism out here in Kanata, and so there is a large concern about the autism program in Ontario. It was dismantled, and then it has been somewhat piecemealed back together, but the issue is that families, once you're assessed, we know that there are about 50,000 people still on the wait list, but the families that are being assessed and are being given funding have to then seek out their own care and therapies for their child, and in some areas they can't find the services that they're looking for, because when the program was dismantled, a lot of these services closed. And so there is that issue as well, that there's an underservicing of autism families, and there's underservicing in school. So a lot of these kids are in school and they don't have that one-on-one EA where some of the more complex kids need. And so it's challenging for the educators, it's challenging for the parents. And something that a lot of people don't know, in my personal personal experience in my family, my oldest niece is nonverbal autistic, and my brother keeps getting calls saying, you know, the EA is not going to be in today. You have to keep your daughter home. And so after 3 or 4 days of that, I mean, families still need to work. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done for autism families and for those kinds of supports, and we're hearing a lot of that out here.
Melissa, really appreciate the time today. Thanks so much for joining us here on the Sam Laprade Show. Thank you. That is Ontario NDP candidate Melissa Conrad. As I said, at Rogers TV, you can visit our YouTube channel, by the way, or rogerstv.com, and just click on Ottawa there. You can find the video. We had a chance to sit down with Melissa Conrad, Karen McCrimmon, Josh Rackless, and Stephen Warren. So that was, Karen McCrimmon, Ontario Liberal Party, Josh Rackless running as an independent, and Stephen Warren, the Green Party candidate, joined us for that. Sean Webster, who's the PC Party of Ontario candidate, he declined our invitation, as did New Blue Party candidate Jennifer Boudreau, but I have good news. We heard from Sean Webster's camp earlier this morning, and they are going to join us tomorrow on the show, so stay tuned for that. That's around the 11:30 mark. We hope to have PC candidate Sean Webster join us on the show. We'll be back with more. This is Derek Fage filling in on the Sam Laprade Show. You're watching on Rogers TV, listening on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Every year, dozens of Canadians are killed or seriously injured because they take risks around railway tracks. Talk to your loved ones about rail safety. Visit stoptracktragedies.ca.
Hello, I'm Jim Deeks, host of Canada Files. I hope you'll join me each week for interesting and informative discussions with some of Canada's most impressive people.
I'm Derek Fage, and I encourage you to join me each and every weekday at 2 p.m. for an edition of Daytime Ottawa. We will share with you some fabulous stories, inspirational stories, and of course, recipes from local chefs. We'll tell you about some wonderful musical performances, introduce you to local businesses and charities, and so much more. Join us here on Daytime Ottawa at 2 p.m. weekdays with repeats at 6 and 11 p.m.
It isn't the heavy trays that make the job difficult, or the fast pace you need to keep up. It's not working another double because someone called in sick. What makes the job tough is the moment you realize a customer has had enough, and you have to make that decision not to overserve. Refusing service isn't personal, it's the law. We know it's not easy, but we're counting on you to keep us all safe. Thank you, servers, for doing the tough job.
Do you have something to share? Let everyone know about your next meeting, your need for volunteers, or your fundraising event on the Rogers TV Community Billboard. Send us your words and we'll bring them to life on Rogers TV and rogerstv.com. When it's time to spread the word, go to rogerstv.com to add your announcement to the Community Billboard.
Everybody knows not to drink and drive, but some people still think it's okay to take drugs and drive. Police have the authority, the ability, and the tools to determine if drivers are impaired by legal or illegal drugs. And because drug-impaired drivers can pose just as great a risk as drunk drivers, they face the same penalties, like the loss of their driver's license, a criminal record, fines, and more. A message from the RCMP, the Canadian Association of Chiefs of Police, and Arrive Alive, Drive Sober.
Rogers TV presents a series of original creative stories animated by storytellers for children of all ages. Join us for Ottawa Storytellers.
It's a new season of The New Fly Fisher on Rogers TV.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Welcome back to the Sam Laprade Show. Sam is off again this week. Derek Fage here from Rogers TV filling in for Sam. Got lots to talk about with my next guest, so we're going to dive right in. I am joined by the president of Winston-Wilmot, Chris Day. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning to you, sir.
Great to have you back as usual. Let's talk popularity. Wow, I think this might have been a shock for somebody. I'm talking about Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. A poll last week showing him the least popular prime minister in the last 55 years. Chris, were you surprised by that?
Well, Mr. Trudeau is a very polarizing person, right? So the flip side of that poll was that he was pretty popular with some people. He was also the most unpopular of all of the unpopular prime ministers we've had over 55 years. So, there's a certain element of currency that doesn't benefit the incumbent, right? If you've got a beef with the prime minister today or with how your life is going, you're going to blame the guy who's in office right now versus someone who may have been there 35, 40 years ago.
Right.
However, it is interesting timing for that poll, given everything that's happened in the last week, and especially when the Prime Minister was visiting Belleville last week. And the unpopularity that we see in that poll really transferred over into ugly ways in the in-person visit to Belleville last week.
Yeah, and I mean, you and I are people that follow the news very closely, and I'm on social media oftentimes to make sure I get sort of breaking news. For those that aren't familiar with what happened at that stop in Belleville with the Prime Minister, Chris, maybe you can just expand upon that for us.
Sure. So, I mean, he was in town to sort of tout one of his government's signature achievements, to put more money in people's pockets in the form of the child benefit. And he met with the local mayor, very standard stuff, went and was intending to go outside to a farmer's market that's outside of Belleville Town Hall, as I understand it. And he was met with a group of supporters, but also with a group of very, very loud, angry, and aggressive detractors. Some of them were waving some flags that would be familiar to anyone who was watching images out of the convoy last year. Mm-hmm. But there were also some very, very negative personal attacks being thrown at the Prime Minister verbally. And there was a real, what I saw in those videos that you were talking about, Derek, was that there was some real sort of push and shove and tussling that really risked turning into something physical and very ugly. And, I think we saw that during the last election campaign. We see it around this Prime Minister when he's in these uncontrolled public environments. And it really, I think, should give pause to his people, his tour people, his planners, who, like to put him in these public environments. Frankly, as this kind of stuff, as detestable as it is, gets thrown at the Prime Minister, it really needs to factor into their planning and security considerations, because the last thing anybody wants is for anybody, least of all the Prime Minister, but anyone around him, anyone who happens to be a bystander, to be hurt or worse because of a situation that he's there for a political photo op, essentially. And that's got to be some consideration going forward here.
It was certainly disturbing to watch, and I won't repeat some of the things that were said because we can't repeat it on radio. But
the CRTC doesn't like that. No.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, but it was a pretty shocking and rather, verbally violent, I guess I'll call it. There was, as you said, some pushing and shoving as well. But taking into consideration, I like to think that that's, a very small minority of Canadians are reacting in that manner. I know people are upset, and then people, have a right to be upset because a lot of people are suffering in this country. There's no doubt about it. But taking into consideration that poll of, being the least popular prime minister in 55 years, what should he consider, and how can he turn this attitude around, Chris?
I mean, this is really, really tough for any government that's been in power for, 8+ years to turn the ship around. The thing about term limits in other places is that, by the end of 2 terms in office, people's views of you are fairly baked in, and it's really, really difficult to change an impression that someone has, especially after that length of time.
Right.
So, he's going to go for, I'm sure, a Hail Mary pass in the form of this week's cabinet shuffle.
Yeah,
got to turn the message around economically and really start showing results for all of the spending and for all of the work and all the consultation and everything that they've been talking about for the last little while, especially since the last election. They really got to start delivering, and people will judge them on their ability to do that.
Minister of Finance, Chrystia Freeland, I just don't see him moving her. And when you talk economy and, that it's difficult to get out of this, unless things sort of begin to shape up. But as far as messaging goes, I look at that position and think, I don't think she's done a great job. And I have a great respect for Chrystia Freeland, don't get me wrong. I just don't think she's done a great job communicating when it comes to the economy, Chris, but should she be concerned at all? Like, I just don't see her getting shuffled out.
So what I've heard from some folks who know Ms. Freeland much better than I do, is that her heart's not in finance as it was at Foreign Affairs. However, I'm hearing as well that there are 5 ministers that are essentially safe in their current roles: Minister Freeland, Minister Champagne at Industry, Minister Duclos at Health, and Minister Joly at Foreign Affairs, as well as Minister Mark Miller at Crown Indigenous. Other than that, I think you're going to see a real large-scale change, because they will want to try and create the impression, even if they're not switching the players at these key financial or fiscal ministries, that there is a different face on this government, and that the star players, the top performers, are being given promotions, and those who are underperforming are being given demotions or shown their way out of cabinet altogether.
Okay. Let's talk by-election very quickly. There's a federal and provincial by-election. Now, what should we look out for here, Chris?
Well, it'll be very interesting stuff today. Out in Calgary, Heritage, this is a fairly safe conservative seat. My personal friend, I'll put that bias on the table, Shubhalay Majumdar, is a conservative candidate out there. He should have a fairly easy win. He's been working his tail off, frankly. But this should be a win for him. It'll be interesting to see by how much, and if there's anything else that we need to worry about there for Mr. Poilievre, because he's had some by-elections recently in safe seats that haven't been necessarily safe outcomes. And then later this week, we've got 2 by-elections provincially. That's one right here in the Ottawa area in Kanata-Carleton. There you've got a strong Tory. We're trying to hold on to that seat for the PCs, with a very strong Liberal challenger, and the person who placed second in the last election in the form of the NDP candidate out there. So that's going to be an interesting race to watch. And then there's one in the Toronto area and the Scarborough area that will likely be a 2-way race between the PCs and the Liberals. And none of this is going to change the balance of power in the Ontario legislature by any means, but it will be an interesting show potentially of momentum, especially as the Ontario Liberals are in the middle of a race to replace their leader.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it might send a message, right? If we don't see, certainly in Kanata-Carleton, it's been interesting. I don't know if you heard earlier, but we on Rogers TV, we invited all the candidates to join us. We were going to have a debate style, but the PC candidate declined our invitation. So we went from a debate style to more of an interview style because of that. And if you listen to the ads that they're doing, the PC party, they don't even mention the candidate's name, right? It's basically, July 27th, vote for Doug Ford is basically what you've got. So I think that's an interesting race, because I think Karen McCrimmon, certainly, former MP, she certainly has name recognition there. So that'll be an interesting race, I think, between the PCs. And you mentioned Melissa Conrad as well, the Ontario NDP candidate. So I think those 3, it's going to be interesting to see who comes out on top. Chris, really appreciate. Actually, you know what? Just very quickly, LRT, from what you heard this morning, how do you think they're handling the situation?
Well, I think they're handling a very difficult situation with challenges. Certainly, they had some communications challenges as they made changes to bus routes last week. I'm not sure that it helped that the mayor was out of town last week. But, you know, that's hindsight stuff. I would say it's, you know, from a forward planning point of view, the mayor has taken off the table any talk of next phases of LRT, and I think that's a common sense sort of approach until you get this right. But without him having done that, I think the Ontario Premier has sort of done that for him with his comments last week at an event at CHEO. So,
right.
You know, this is a mess that needs to be fixed. If it's a week that will fix it finally, then I think some people are willing to give it that. But I know so many people who've lost total confidence in the system, and rebuilding that trust in transit is going to be a huge challenge.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, monumental for sure. Chris, always a pleasure. Thanks so much for joining us.
You bet, Derek.
All right, take care. That is Chris Day, president of Winston Wilmot. We'll be discussing LRT again in our next segment, because Lunch with Derek coming up. I'll introduce you to our special guest joining us in just a moment. First, let's head over to your news, find out what's happening. Derek Fage here, filling in on the Sam Laprade Show. You're watching on Rogers TV and listening on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
October 5th, 2014, my daughter was hit by a train. She was walking along the sides of the tracks, and it shattered her world.
It was John's graduation. We were so proud. We all got together for a picnic. That's when we heard coming from the radio. So we stopped and we listened. It helped us get to safety. That's why when I think of John, because now he has a real future to look forward to.
Hey everybody, my name is Karen. I'm here with my best friends Shane and Monique. Join us on Rogers TV for Fitness Faction. Every week, we're going to take you through a full body workout. We've got strength training, we've got cardio, we've got HIIT. Ladies, let's get back into it.
I think we've got 10 more skaters. Let's go.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo, Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
Bum, 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 bum. $20. $20. We're on the line for $20.
Is City News.
CIWW 1310 AM in Ottawa.
And CJET 101.1 FM in Smiths Falls and the Valley. Number 1 for local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 101.1 everywhere.
It's Monday, July 24th. Good afternoon. I'm Perushka Gopal-Kester. Right now, 27 degrees in Ottawa, 26 in Smiths Falls. A severe thunderstorm watch is in effect. Here's what's making news right now. OC Transpo hoping to resume service gradually by next Monday, July 31st. Transit officials providing an update this morning saying that testing will continue. There'll also be a design modification of the axle system. The axle bearing issue was behind the latest problem. The Director of Engineering Services, Richard holders, saying the wheel assembly that was out of order recently will be shipped abroad for further testing.
The assembly that was out of tolerance has been shipped to France. The manufacturer will carefully dismantle the hub and inspect the components for any abnormal wear. We expect the results of the analysis to be completed by July the 28th. The grease from the hub has also been sent to a laboratory for further analysis.
Now, the design modification on the axles will also affect Stage 2 of the Confederation line, but not the Trillium line. The head of OC Transpo, Renee Amilcar, is saying that before service can resume, all axle bearings need to be inspected and safety notes need to be provided from Alstom and RTG. So far, 44 light rail vehicles have been tested and 6 are being further investigated. Now, over at Parliament Hill, a federal cabinet shuffle is expected as early as Wednesday, as the Liberal government tries to turn around its fortunes midway through its minority mandate. But as City News Parliament Hill reporter Cormac McSweeney tells us that some experts believe a new look is not enough.
With the Liberals trailing in the polls to the Conservatives for months, Daniel Ballon, director of the McGill Institute for the Study of Canada, tells me the government needs more than a makeover to stop the political bleeding.
A cabinet shuffle will not solve all the political problems that they face right now, that's for sure.
Ballon says those issues go deeper and there needs to be a policy shift ahead of the next election if the Liberals really want to re-energize the electorate before the next vote. As for this shuffle, he believes it could be large because even moving one or two key portfolios creates a domino effect. But Ballon doesn't believe it will be a complete overhaul of faces.
I think there will be a lot of musical chairs, not necessarily that many people, coming in.
Public Safety Minister Marco Mendicino is expected to get shuffled out of his gig while portfolios like Finance, Foreign Affairs and Innovation are considered safe, and new Montreal MP Anna Gainey is a potential candidate to be promoted to cabinet. Cormac McSweeney, Parliament Hill.
Now, over in Nova Scotia, the search continues for 4 people, including 2 children who went missing in a torrent of water in that area over the weekend. The mayor from West Hants was at the site earlier today and says that search teams are pumping out water out of the field in order to get ground access.
They're pumping 25,000 gallons of water a minute. So it's much lower. So it's low to the point where we can get certainly in the area on the ground looking.
An RCMP dive team recovered an unoccupied pickup truck in over 2 meters of water. That's believed to be the vehicle that the children were traveling in at the time. City News time, it's 12:06. I'm Perushka Gopalkista for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Connecting you and your community. This is the Sam Laprade Show on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Welcome back to the Sam Laprade Show. Derek Fage here filling in for Sam. Sam is off again this week. She will be back next week. It is time for lunch with Derek, and pulling up a chair to have lunch today, I am joined by former Mayor Larry O'Brien. Good afternoon, Larry.
Thank you, Derek, for inviting me on your show. I'm just delighted to be with you.
Great to have you. And also Robin Brown back with us again, co-lead for the 613-819 Black Hub. Good afternoon, Robin.
Good afternoon, Derek, and hello, Larry.
Hello, Robin.
Great to have you both here. Well, we just heard this morning, we took that live here on City News, the press conference. Many people speaking at that conference, a lot of patting on the back and thank you for all your work so far from Mayor Sutcliffe and General Manager Renee Amilcar. We heard from Richard Holden. We heard from Interim City Manager Wendy Stephenson. And we found out that we're down another week. We will not be back until at least next Monday, July 31st. Larry, I'll start with you, because as the mayor who got the design of the East-West Light Rail Transit line approved back in 2006, you must just be shaking your head every time something like this comes up.
I've shaken my head so hard it's fallen off. I just cannot believe the absolute incompetence that they've shown in the implementation and the execution of this project. It's mind-boggling. They had a good plan. It had to be executed well. I think anyone involved in the execution should be, maybe that's a little harsh, hey, Robin, they should be executed, but it is that bad. This is not going to get solved. I went downtown last week on Tuesday, the first day that they cut off, and I couldn't find a parking spot. I searched for 45 minutes to find a parking spot downtown, and then I found out why. The civil servants who only work downtown 3 days a week, they've given up on LRT. They're all taking their cars.
Yeah, and Robin, I think that's my biggest concern is that so many people find it unreliable. They've lost complete confidence in light rail that they have turned to going back to the car. What do you think of this situation, Robin?
Yeah, no, I think you could see people losing faith in the LRT and transit, but also just in the system that has brought us to the point where this group, RTG, is getting so many second chances. Like, I'm sure we all would be like, boy, if I screwed up that much in my work, I'd like to get all that kind of thing. Like the fact that they still have the city couldn't get out of the $1 billion maintenance contract they still have. And as Larry pointed out, with all the mess-ups that have happened, like the fact that the system still has the city obligated to do this, I would suspect have a lot of people feeling kind of frustrated.
Yeah, and Larry, I guess that's the problem, right? That we don't know what's in that contract. It's obviously, a binding contract that's got stipulations in there that could get very expensive. As Robin said, if somebody did this kind of work for us at our home, or worked on our car and, it kept breaking and, we go back to the mechanic, I would expect that he would have to, fix the car on his own time and his own money at some point. But what about these contracts, Larry?
What happens if you bought a lemon and no matter how good that technician is fixing it, it ain't going to work? I mean, and I think that's what we're facing. I think we have a major engineering problem with this project. I don't think it has anything to do with money or politics. Right now, it's engineering. The fact that they're having to send the wheels back to France for someone to look at it, to confirm what they probably already know, it ain't going to work. And we might have to, I hate to say this, but, there was a guy that used to say that buses were better than trains in Ottawa. His name was Andy Hayden.
Yeah.
Every morning when I wake up and I hear this crap about the LRT, I say, oh, poor Andy.
Yeah. People laughed at him, right? Right?
Oh, yeah.
People thought he was crazy. And don't forget, Robin, this is a bus system, by the way, that was an award-winning bus system. Right? Mm-hmm. At one time, I think we forget that. People did, I'm over 50 years old now. I remember, the days when we were getting awarded for our exceptional bus system, and now look where we find ourselves. It's just totally mind-boggling, right?
Yeah. No, another thing that's getting lost is that, because you keep on hearing the term RTG, but people have probably forgotten that RTG is one of the companies involved in that is SNC Lavalin. Right, and if we remember back in 2019, we should look back to history and think about who we're doing business with. But
yeah. And Larry, the other issue is, some people are bringing this up. If we put an arena downtown, a potential arena downtown, let's say it's LeBreton Flats, we had a station that they shut down on Canada Day, Pimisi Station, because they were worried about, security issues when it comes to... I had a local architect, Tone Dreesen, on the show a little bit earlier. This is what he had to say about potential impacts if the LRT breaks down during a major event.
Can you imagine what would happen if the LRT was packed full with happy post-Blues Fest having attended people, and it had failed and it had gotten stuck in a tunnel? What would the reaction have been, and how does that affect us reputationally on an international stage that we've designed a system that can't handle that capacity?
What do you think of that, Larry?
Well,
Imagine that.
I think we're well past that point. I think I don't think we have to worry about our reputation on the international stage because we simply don't have one anymore. I mean, this is so embarrassing. for our country and for our city. It's a city where it's not that fun was forgot here; it's confidence was forgotten here. I saw it firsthand in many situations, and some of these people in the administration of our city, they've been there. This is the back administration office. They've been there for so long. They think that they're the smartest people in the world, but when you push right down on it, they're not. And I think that's what we're facing. We need to clean house at the administrative level in the city and get in some, privatize where we can, get some smarter people in there, and take the long-term path to success. And that may mean starting over with our transit program, because this one simply isn't going to be able to be fixed without major changes and renovations.
Robin, any sympathy for this new council and new mayor when it comes to this? I mean, they're kind of forced into trying to fix a problem that was already there, right? That's a long pause, Robin.
New on the scene. You're correct. Yeah. It's also how they operate going forward, right? And you hit on a key thing in terms of the secrecy of right that's led to this deal being secret. So we see them pushing for things and implementing the recommendation in the LRT report that inquiry that will actually lead to concrete change. Then that would be a good thing. But we'll have to see that happen.
Larry, what do you think? Do you have any sympathy for this new mayor, new council at all?
Yeah, I do. Limited, but I do. I think if they call it, there's the most powerful words in business. It is what it is. They've got a skunk. They've got a lemon. They have to fix it. For them to try and defend it is bad. And on the secrecy thing that Robin brought up, when I was first mayor, I was told I couldn't see the contract on the original LRT system. Well, eventually I pushed through and found, and they kept saying, you can't cancel it. You can't cancel it. I eventually managed, almost having to bring lawyers in to get the administrative people to give me the contract. Took a look at it, and there was cancellation clauses coming out your yin-yang in that contract. The administrative state that runs the city of Ottawa didn't want the politicians to see it. And I think these politicians, these councillors, have to understand that the people sitting in the administrative state are not their friends. They're there with their own activities and their own forms of, I won't say it, but their own ways of looking at the world.
Okay.
So I think the politicians have to get real tough with the people running the city.
All right, we're going to take a quick break here, gentlemen. Stay on the line with us here because I'll be back with a couple of other topics. So take a break. We'll be back with Robin Brown and Larry O'Brien in just a moment. You're listening on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Every year, dozens of Canadians are killed or seriously injured because they take risks around railway tracks. Talk to your loved ones about rail safety. Visit stoptracktragedies.ca.
Hello, I'm Jim Deeks, host of Canada Files. I hope you'll join me each week for interesting and informative discussions with some of Canada's most impressive people.
Hello, I'm Liz Dowdswell, Lieutenant Governor of Ontario. In 2008, carbon monoxide, a deadly invisible gas, killed an entire family in our province. That tragedy led to a new law requiring homes with potential CO sources to have alarms. John Gignac's family members passed away that day, and he shares his story to save others.
Please make sure you have working CO alarms in your home. Protect your family today.
Send them home! Get rid of them! Gentlemen, please.
And so, this organ, which I regret I cannot name because of the presence of these members of the weaker sex, who, although they are married, could not possibly endure...
Get them out.
Patience, Ginny. Patience.
Get them out!
Dr. McFarlane!
Mrs. Trout.
There's no place for women in a medical school. Get them out!
If you do not bring this classroom under control, I am going to repeat every word of this disgusting lecture to your charming wife.
My friend Jenny Trout was not the only woman to face this kind of thing in medical school. But she would become the first woman licensed to practice medicine in Canada.
My husband is a wonderful man and a great father when he's not drinking. I'm so angry he chooses alcohol over us. If he really loved us, he'd stop drinking, right? My counselor suggested I try Al-Anon. I didn't understand why. I'm not the one with the problem, but I'm glad I went. Do you worry about someone's drinking? You are not alone. Al-Anon or Alateen can help. Call 866-200-0033 or visit alanon.org/hope.
Rogers TV presents a series of original creative stories animated by storytellers for children of all ages. Join us for Ottawa Storytellers.
It's a new season of The New Fly Fisher on Rogers TV.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News.
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
Welcome back to the Sam Laprade Show. Derek Fage here filling in for Sam. Sam will be back next week. We continue Lunch with Derek with former Mayor Larry O'Brien and co-lead for the 613-819 Black Hub, Robin Brown. And just to wrap up this LRT conversation we've been having, as part of that press conference earlier today, they said the wheel hub assemblies on the vehicles that run on that line have to be completely redesigned in an effort to find a permanent solution. And I believe they said that could take somewhere in the 2 to 3 year range. So that gives you an idea of what kind of major situation we're talking about. Yeah, well, here it is. Rideau Transit Group estimates it'll take 12 to 18 months to design and test a new axle and ensure it is fit for purpose. That's from a representative from RTG talking about that. So there was where we stand there. Another interesting story we're following here is Ottawa's photo radar. David Smith in the Talkback Hour was talking about photo radar, but what's really interesting that caught our attention as well is photo radar red light cameras have caught dozens of Ottawa police officers so far this year. Stats from the Ottawa Police Services Board themselves show there have been 39 internal complaints about red light camera infractions and 53 internal complaints about automated speed enforcement camera tickets involving police officers, I believe in the first half of this year. I guess now they know how most other drivers feel, Robin.
Indeed, they do. I guess my first point on this would be good for the media for getting this story out and following these meetings and because stuff like this can easily be buried. But following that, the thing that we really would want to see is that any discipline process that results from this, and there should be one, is transparent. This goes back to what we were saying in our LRT conversation, right? That transparency is so important, and often we do a lot of stuff with policing. A lot of the stuff that happens with them is not transparent. So we certainly would like to see this be treated very transparently.
What do you think about that, Larry?
Well, I guess I sort of come down on the other side of the coin on this particular topic.
Okay.
First question, but then again, that's why you have me on, isn't it?
Yeah.
The first question is: were they in their police cars when they were getting dinged? Because it wasn't clear to me that they were.
I am unclear on that as well. That's an excellent question.
I think that's an important question. If they were in their police cars, I've often. I have a lot of respect for the fire, the police, the people who do the ambulance duties. I mean, they've got a terrible job, and sometimes they do have to squeeze around some laws in order to do their job. So if they were in their police cars, I'm thinking maybe we should cut them a little slack. If they're private individuals, driving their own private cars, welcome to the club, boys. I've paid a lot of fines. Fortunately, don't get any points because these things, they don't take away points when you get caught by the camera.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up, because not a lot of people necessarily realize that, because they can't guarantee who's in the vehicle, right?
Yeah, and tragically, through my own personal experience, I've learned the one upside of that. You still have to check.
Appreciate your honesty on that, Larry. What do you think about the effectiveness, Robin, of speed cameras and red light cameras in general?
From the research that I've done, they're a lot more effective than and cost effective than police enforcement.
Right.
Like, this is like one of the traffic is one of the biggest concerns. Like, always when in the latest polls of folks in Ottawa, traffic is one of the biggest concerns. And in terms of addressing it, the police solution is the least effective and the most expensive. Right. So the things like speed cameras from what I've been doing are researching are pretty effective, because people. If they're concerned with their losing money or their car being damaged, right? Then things like speed light cameras or traffic calming measures, that they also work well, because people don't want to drive over and smash their car up.
What do you think about that, Larry? Their effectiveness.
I think Robin's right on. I completely agree with him 100% here. I love the idea of these traffic control systems, because the last thing we want to see is some innocent person, getting killed by a speeding driver or careless speeding driver. I mean, the drunk drivers, you can get off the road pretty quickly, but it's all these other people that sort of they bend the rules a little bit. And I think these measures are perfectly in line with everything I read in my last reading of 1984.
Let's end with something a little on the lighter side. It was a huge weekend at the box office, because two big movies came out, and very different movies, obviously. Oppenheimer and Barbie. Do you think that cinema is finally having a comeback of sorts, Robin?
My wife and I do movie night every Friday, so it's been first we've been seeing. It's having a post-COVID comeback for sure, right? But it wasn't just those two. We've got things like Mission Impossible and Spider-Man coming out, which is great. But also we saw a really great Canadian film on about Indigenous residential schools called Bones of Crows, which is also great. Yeah. So. I think Barbie and Oppenheimer are just kind of continuing that post-COVID resurgence.
Well, and Larry, I think, with all the streaming services now as well, right? You're paying, what is it? I don't know, $14 a month, and you're getting, movie quality production, even when it comes to television shows as well. Are you a movie goer?
I haven't been to a movie since COVID.
Really,
Movie theater. And those habits, once you get out of them, are hard to get back in. I don't go searching for the butter popcorn anymore. So it's not something that we do as part of our our social life. No, I doubt if I'm going to see Barbie or Oppenheimer until I'm able to see it on my TV.
Yeah, I still enjoy the experience. I think it comes from my father. My father's much like yourself, Robin. He goes on almost on a weekly basis, like every Friday. Certainly during COVID, he couldn't go. He's still a little bit leery of getting out weekly because of he's immune compromised, unfortunately. But he goes during the day when there's not a lot of people. He's back to doing that. I used to complain to my dad, well, it's so expensive, I don't want to go to a movie. My dad's like, where else can you go see something that cost about $250 million, and it's going to cost you about $25 for 2.5 hours of entertainment? And I thought, okay, maybe he's onto something. Maybe he's onto something.
Like the true accountant he was.
Yeah, that's right, Larry. Exactly. Gentlemen, really appreciate the time today. Thanks so much for joining me.
No problem. Thanks for having us.
You're welcome, Derek. Thank you for having us.
Take care. Oh, it was my pleasure. That's Larry O'Brien, of course, former mayor of Ottawa, and Robin Brown, co-lead for the 613-819 Black Hub. We'll be back with more. We've got some business to talk about coming up in just a few moments. This is Derek Fage filling in on the Sam Laprade Show. You're watching on Rogers TV and listening on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
October 5th, 2014, my daughter was hit by a train. She was walking along the sides of the tracks, and it shattered her world.
Hey, man. Want to go for a ride?
Sure. Toss me a life jacket.
I'm gonna need this. Gonna need this.
Nope.
Gonna need this. And this.
I think we should stay here. I thought you used to play ball.
Hi, I'm Julian Armour from Music and Beyond. Join us for a new show this spring on Rogers called Music and Beyond Presents.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo, Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
Bum, 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 bum. $20. $20. We're on the line for $20.
Number 1 for local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 101.1 everywhere.
It's Monday, July 24th. Good afternoon. I'm Perushka Gopal-Kista right now. Partly cloudy, 27 degrees, 27 in Smiths Falls. A severe thunderstorm watch is in effect. Here's what's making news right now. OC Transpo hoping to resume service gradually by next Monday, July 31st. Transit officials providing an update this morning saying that testing will continue. There'll also be a design modification of the axle system. The axle bearing issue was behind the latest problem. The Director of Engineering Services, Richard Holder, saying that wheel assembly that was out of order recently will be shipped abroad for further testing.
The assembly that was out of tolerance has been shipped to France. The manufacturer will carefully dismantle the hub and inspect the components for any abnormal wear. We expect the results of the analysis to be completed by July the 28th. The grease from the hub has also been sent to a laboratory for further analysis.
So far, 44 light rail vehicles have been tested and 6 are being further investigated. Talks between Hydro and the union representing its workers will continue this week as hundreds of union workers remain at the picket lines. The two sides met on July 17th and 21st but have yet to reach an agreement. Earlier this week, Hydro Ottawa filed for an injunction to protect non-union employees from unsafe working conditions that was granted on Friday. Now, the union representing hundreds of workers have been on strike since June 28th. City News Time, it's 12:32. I'm Perushka Gopal-Kista for news anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The Business Lunch on City News, brought to you by the Ottawa Business Journal.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Welcome back to the Sam Laprade Show. Derek Fage here, filling in for Sam. Sam will be back next week. You may have heard a bit of controversy surrounding this Queen Elizabeth driveway we have here in the city of Ottawa. You may have heard. So as part of its active use program that began as a pandemic measure that back in 2020. The NCC, as you know, has closed a stretch of the driveway on weekdays from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. From 5th Avenue to Somerset Street from May 13th, I believe, May to October. The active use program designed to, that's reserve the parkways for biking, walking, and other car-free transportation methods from May to October. And of course, it affects a lot of things. Certainly, the mayor sparked some debate with his questioning, closing it during that period of time, Monday to Friday. Certainly open to the Saturday and Sunday. It's affecting, I imagine, businesses in that area. I imagine people commuting as well from the Glebe area. Here to talk more about that, we are joined by Patrick Burke from the Glebe BIA. Good afternoon, Patrick.
Hi, Derek. How you doing?
I'm doing well, thanks. How are you doing these? You know what? Before we get into this, how are things in the Glebe these days? Let's try to talk. Let's share some positive news too.
Yeah, the things in the Glebe, I think, are going really well. There are lots of people out. The weather has been, over the past couple weeks at least, quite nice out, and I think people are just feeling positive and glad to be out after a rough couple of years, and we're just still making that climb back. So there are cheerful faces in the neighborhood right now.
Excellent news. Happy to hear it. So, as executive director of the Glebe BIA, Patrick, you're in contact with businesses all the time. What are you hearing about impacts of the closure of Queen Elizabeth driveways during the week?
Yeah, and so it's a program that is on weekends from sort of Victoria Day to Thanksgiving, and then 7 days a week from Canada Day until the Labor Day weekend. And we hear mixed things. We certainly have members who use the program and they love it, and their customers feel the same way. And the canal is beautiful, and so it's obviously a very pleasant experience to have that extra space and walk or bike along the canal. But the obvious flip side to that is that there are some significant traffic impacts, particularly during the morning and evening commute and big days in the Glebe. So we've got lots of local independent businesses. We've got Lansdowne, and weekends in the summer and spring and fall can be, really vibrant, lots going on, and that's when you notice that traffic really slow down. And I'm hearing more this year than last year from our businesses that they're hearing from their customers that it's quite slow during those peak periods especially, and it's just some added frustration if you're trying to get down to Lansdowne for an event, if you're trying to support a local restaurant or a local business. It's just an added barrier. And so certainly getting people outside and active is the right idea. I'm not sure we found specifically the right place and time for this program.
Patrick, what is there a compromise that you've heard from that businesses, even some residents would like to see? Is there a compromise there?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the challenges is that we haven't really, as a community, sat down around the table with the NCC and pumped these ideas out. Certainly, some people say it's a good program, but we need to pick our times. Looking out the window at Bank Street on a Monday afternoon, there's not a significant traffic impact. That'll change at about 5 o'clock, and it'll be different on the weekends. And so maybe it's an issue about where, maybe it's an issue about the timing. I think there's also a broader conversation about how we can use the space along the canal in general. And I've heard a lot of people are keen to talk about the traffic impacts, but other people are stepping up and saying, I'd like better access to the water. I'd like to be able to take a canoe out, or I wonder what the options are for public transit. And so there are a lot of ideas out there, but I do think that getting people around the table will maybe help flesh those ideas out a little bit, and understanding how to be flexible during those really high impact times for businesses in the Glebe would be better for us.
Have you reached out to the NCC, Patrick?
Yeah, we have had a couple of consultations, but I think the sense I get is that this is a program that they decided they were going to implement. And so they did. So it's an ongoing talk, and it would be nice to have maybe a bit more engagement from them, just to try and find the right, the right key to hit for these programs.
Right. Is it fair to say you're not necessarily encouraged by the talk so far?
I mean, I haven't been recently, and I would like that to be just a bit better and a bit more open. One of the things, our goal is for the glebe to be as accessible as possible for as many people as possible. And people take all modes to get to the glebe. But one of the things that we've noticed is that this program seems to reduce public usage of the QED by about 80%. And so having a conversation with them about how we can continue to be a destination and continue to welcome people from across Ottawa has been a challenging one, or maybe just a nascent one. Maybe it's just getting started.
Am I right, Patrick? They open that before Red Blacks games and after for about 3 hours. Is that? Am I right in that?
Yeah, you are right. So there's certainly flexibility for Red Blacks games, and if the Queensway is closed, then they'll be flexible with that. So that's definitely encouraging to see. There's still a bit of a challenge if you have an athletical game or a blackjacks game.
So they don't open it for an Atletico Ottawa game, like they do the Red Blacks.
I think it depends upon the event, and and so not for all events, and so for some events that are larger, you'll still have some trouble getting in.
What about Lansdowne as a whole? Like businesses at Lansdowne, do they feel the impact of it?
Yeah, I think they feel it. They feel it significantly because they have an entry point along the QED, so that is still open. You can still get there, but there's not quite the through fare in that area, and so they'll definitely feel the impact of that program.
Right. Let's talk about, you mentioned, things are, looking better, obviously, as we make our way out of the pandemic. Businesses, I imagine, still trying to, get back on their feet. What have you heard from businesses as far as, getting through the pandemic and where they are now? Are things looking brighter in the area?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the challenge is that, it really took a lot to get through the pandemic. And, there are a lot of businesses that are, facing repayment loans for SEBA. And so that can be a challenge because they took on some debt during the pandemic, and they're trying to figure out how to pay that back. But generally speaking, I think people are out more than they have been since the pandemic started, and people are feeling pretty optimistic about the future. And so if you walk down the glebe, you'll see that the patios are pretty full, and people are out and about shopping through the neighborhood.
Excellent. Happy to hear it. Really appreciate the time today, Patrick. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks so much. Have a great day.
Thanks, you as well. That's Patrick Burke, the Executive Director of the Glebe BIA. I should mention, too, one of the reasons we brought Patrick on, because he was quoted in an Ottawa Business Journal article about that portion of the Queen Elizabeth driveway that's been closed to cars. Certainly, OSEG, the Ottawa Sports and Entertainment Group, they have their concerns, and that they share those concerns. They own and operate, as you know, the Ottawa Red Blacks Football Club and the Ottawa 67s Hockey Club. They manage events at the TD Place complex throughout that Lansdowne district. So they've expressed their concerns as well to the NCC. They say it's been a negative impact having that closure to Lansdowne tourism in particular. They go on to talk about how it's, impacted local residents, small businesses in the neighborhood. They spoke to Janice Barassi. She is the Vice President of Brand and Social Impact for OSEG. So if you wanted to check out that article, you can head over to obj.ca. All right, we're going to take a little break here. This is Derek Fage filling in on the Sam Laprade Show, and you're watching on Rogers TV and listening on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Every year, dozens of Canadians are killed or seriously injured because they take risks around railway tracks. Talk to your loved ones about rail safety. Visit stoptracktragedies.ca.
Hello, I'm Jim Deeks, host of Canada Files. I hope you'll join me each week for interesting and informative discussions with some of Canada's most impressive people.
I'm Derek Fage, and I encourage you to join me each and every weekday at 2 p.m. for an edition of Daytime Ottawa. We will share with you some fabulous stories, inspirational stories, and of course, recipes from local chefs. We'll tell you about some wonderful musical performances, introduce you to local businesses and charities, and so much more. Join us here on Daytime Ottawa at 2 p.m. weekdays with repeats at 6 and 11 p.m.
This is a man's heart, a heart in desperate need of medical attention. But because 78% of Indigenous people experience racism in healthcare, he may not get the help he needs. Become an ally. Rise above racism in healthcare.
Hi, I'm Paula Roy, and it's my pleasure to welcome you back into my kitchen for another season of Paula Roy's Favorite Foods. My approach to food is pretty straightforward. Fancy is fine, but when you're in a time crunch or have a really hungry and patient family to feed, I say simple recipes made with wholesome ingredients that you probably have on hand are the best. And that's exactly what you'll find on Paula Roy's Favorite Foods on Rogers TV.
The regulars, the guys who keep this place in business. Last week, they had something to celebrate. Jason had just finished university, so they toasted his profs, his TAs, his old roommates. Well, they toasted just about everyone. But I worry about and take care of my guys. So even when I know they're not driving, sometimes that means bringing them a little surprise. And then they had a drink to me.
Brought to you by Smart Serve Ontario and Arrive Alive, Drive Sober.
Rogers TV presents a series of original creative stories animated by storytellers for children of all ages. Join us for Ottawa Storytellers.
It's a new season of The New Fly Fisher on Rogers TV.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Welcome back to the Sam Laprade Show. Derek Fage here filling in for Sam. Sam's off for another week. The reason I love doing this show and daytime on Rogers TV is because I get to come across things I never knew existed, and I'm actually disappointed in myself that I did not know that Ottawa has a Barbie museum. I would honestly love to visit this Barbie. Listen, let me just bring my next guest on, because I remember there's an exhibit in Montreal that when I was working in Montreal, that I used to take my daughter to when she would come down for a vacation with me, and that was one of our stops. But I could have just been stopping here at the Ottawa Barbie Museum since 2021. I'm joined by Elizabeth Condris, who has that Ottawa Barbie Museum up and running. How are you, Elizabeth?
Fine, thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. So you have to tell our listeners and our viewers how this all got started? Because you got your first Barbie from your parents, I believe, at about the age of 9. Is that right?
Well, no. Technically, I was 5 years old, but I started collecting at 9.
I see. Okay. So why did you become a collector? What stood out to you?
Well, originally, I mean, my family's very artistic in all the venues, but I always liked fashion. And it started off as a serious interest in fashion. Of course, that's never gone away.
Okay.
But that's kind of where it started, and then it just continued from there. And now looking back, all the decades, you can see the changes in the fashion, what we did wear. And it's like a historical significance.
Yeah, did Barbie always, Elizabeth, stay to the fashion of the day?
Very definitely.
Yeah.
Yes, there's the hot pants, the mini skirts, the bell bottoms. In the mid '60s, Jackie Onassis was big, so Barbie has a doll called the American Girl, and if you look at her fashions, you could say yes, Jackie Onassis would wear that.
Right. Right.
So and then of course later on with a lot of celebrities, Cher and now Tina Turner and David Bowie, and some of the likenesses are really like their outfits, and the whole doll itself really portrays, that what they're trying to accomplish there.
Tell me about your collection. Describe your collection for us, Elizabeth.
Well, right now in the museum, I have in the neighborhood of 3,000 items on display. So I have dolls through the history. I have the very first one from 1959, all the way up to brand new ones you can still find in the toy store. I do have approximately 24,000 items at last count.
Wow.
Which I'm in the process of trying to catalog for Guinness, because I'm unofficially the world's largest collection in the world.
Really?
Yes.
So I guess once you've done that inventory, what happens? So, a representative from Guinness would have to come and verify that?
No, what they want is an inventory on a file that I can send to them.
I see.
And then, of course, all the newspaper articles, pictures, everything like that. They already have that part. I just have to get them the inventory now.
So 24,000, like where do you store all of this?
I do have quite a large storage unit where the rest is, and I keep trying to push a few more into my cases. I actually, the museum has tripled in size since 2021.
Tell me about the response that you've had so far. So you're out there at the Carp Road Flea Market, right?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. Yeah, what's the response been like?
Well, generally, I've had people, now this was before the movie, whether they liked Barbie, knew anything about it, but they say, thank you for showing this collection, showing the history. It's amazing accomplishment just to see that, whether they're interested in the actual doll or not, which has been quite nice for me. Since the movie, yes, there has been, of course, I saw the movie. It was
did
fantastic.
you? Yeah.
Oh, yes. I would go see it again in a second.
So, okay, tell me about the movie, because I spoke to our movie reviewer. He'll be back on this week, but I spoke to Keith Whittier, our movie reviewer that joins us on the Sam Laprade show, and he had great things to say as well. And I'll be honest with you, when I first heard a Barbie movie was coming out, I kind of rolled my eyes and went, oh, yeah, sure, Barbie movie. But the reviews...
Barbie commercial, only it wasn't. It was really amazing. And again, you don't have to collect the doll or know anything about it. You can go and enjoy the movie, and there's a little something for everybody.
What's the premise, Elizabeth?
Well, I don't want to give too much away, but it is kind of interesting in the way that, it's sort of like, well, Barbie's everything, Ken is the accessory, but then she has to go into the real world, and she sort of finds out a few interesting things, and there's some history in there, which is great, and the history is all true.
I love it. I love it.
So, and then, kind of what happens. And I don't want to give anything away, but it was a really fun movie. And I went with my sister, one of my sisters, and she really enjoyed it. And she's got, I collect Barbies, and that's as far as her interest goes. And she really enjoyed it. And we sort of walked out of the theater going, should we turn around and watch it again?
Nice. So you mentioned your sister. You went to the movie with one of your sisters. What does your family think about, you making this a passion project and collecting Barbie collectibles all these years?
They've all been fine with it. And it's sort of like, my father collected trains. So it's the collector parts in part of the family. My sisters, no, they're not into collecting anything. They just, which is fine.
Right.
But they do, every once in a while, they'll find something for me. Or my birthday, I'll get like a Barbie t-shirt or a Barbie hat or, something Barbie-ish, which is fun. The other thing I guess I didn't realize it before. Barbie's birthday is March the 9th, 1959. And I know her birthday was March the 9th. But she's also, which I just found out indirectly, she's a Pisces. Well, so am I. So we're creative, we're inventive, we believe in magic. So maybe that's why I kept collecting.
So what are your hours at the museum?
It's generally the best day is Sunday from 9 to 5 when the flea market is open.
Okay.
But I am also there Wednesdays 12 to 4, Saturdays 10 to 4. But I'm actually in here almost every day, so people can call and make an appointment. Like I've had a few birthday groups come in.
Oh, what a great idea.
When we're not open, so they can just concentrate on the museum and on. I do have dolls for sale if they want to buy anything as well. Of course, those are all doubles. I don't sell it if I don't have it.
Of course. Have you ever visited the Barbie exhibition there in Montreal?
Unfortunately, I haven't had the time yet. Yeah. I would like to go. The interesting thing is that although it's an exhibit, there is not really anybody there that knows anything. And I had another lady call me going, I really liked it, but nobody knew anything.
Yeah, it's just, I have visited. There's nobody necessarily to talk to. You really just go and look at the Barbies that are on display. They're very unique. It's a beautiful spot too, where they showcase.
It does look really nice.
Yeah.
But she even said she called head office and I don't know. It's like okay.
Elizabeth, really, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate the time.
Well, thank you. It was, as you can see, I always love to talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. You've turned your passion into something fun for all of us, and we appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
All right, that's Elizabeth Condris from the Ottawa Barbie Museum. You can catch that at the Carp Road Flea Market, and you can get in touch with Elizabeth as well if you want to do a little private showing there. As she said, she's even had a birthday party in there. Before I let you go, I just want to mention this, and because this particular gentleman, Sam Laprade, and I know very well. He's done my headshots for me as a host and an actor. I did a celebrity and their pet's calendar with him. His name is Sean Sisk, and not only a wonderful photographer, but absolutely wonderful friend. Such a dear friend to so many. And I'll just read the story. On the GoFundMe page, Sean has been struck by a sudden and severe illness diagnosed as an invasive group A streptococcus, which has quickly escalated into a life-threatening septic shock. He is currently fighting for his life in the ICU at a hospital in Ottawa. All his friends determined, his family, to support him. I've been in contact this morning with his wife, Erin. He's got three beautiful children as well. Sean is self-employed, so it's a difficult time for his family. His sister has set up a GoFundMe page. You can just go to GoFundMe.com. It is called Help Sean Sisk During Health Crisis. Sean, S-E-A-N, Sisk, S-I-S-K. They have a goal of raising $30,000. It has reached $29,000 now. And I know many of you that are listening in here and watching on Rogers TV, you probably know Sean or you've seen Sean. He's worked with prominent events like RBC Blues Fest and City Folk, Faces Magazine, Ottawa Life Magazine. They're having such a difficult time, and of course, without that income that Sean brings in, they've been having a very difficult time. We invited family member to come on the show to talk about the situation, but as you can imagine, it's a very emotional time for all of them. So again, if you're interested, GoFundMe.com. Help Sean Sisk during health crisis. You can make.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line